Hello, everyone. Today is September 12th, 2025. It is 6 p.m. Central Time, and we are kicking off a new episode of HOSTility here on the line. Tonight's guest is the executive director of the American Humanist Association. He's also the son of the first open atheist ever in Congress. I first met Fish at the American Atheist National Convention earlier this year, and we ran into each other again at the Secular Student Alliance National Convention just a few months ago, where we got to speak a little bit more in detail about kind of what you're doing and what the AHA is doing, the American Humanist Association. But I'm really excited to get on into all of that. But first, of course, welcome, Fish. How are you doing? Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Arden. I don't know how I'm doing. Like, this has been a wild week, kind of a crappy week, I think, for anyone who believes in humanity or doesn't want, like, broadly left-wing groups to be targeted for violence or anybody to be targeted for violence. But, trying to keep our heads above water and move through it the best we can. And I'm excited to you and all the folks on the line.
Yeah. Okay, your camera started there, but it looks like it caught back up. I know we talked earlier this week, and I feel like it was in much more good spirits. We were much more excited, and then everything happened like immediately the day after that, and I'm glad it hasn't soured our ability to show up here today, because that would be unfortunate, and I don't want us to get slowed down by tragedies that happen, however horrific they are. But yeah, it has definitely been a rough week for, I think, pretty much everyone who's involved in politics broadly these days. Um,
That's right. We talked on Tuesday. It's like BC and AD, right? Before Tuesday and after Tuesday.
yeah, that is what it felt like. It was a whole different world. I mean, I was not expecting for. It felt like everything changed. The Fire Nation attacked on Wednesday. Um, all right. So I wanted to start us off with this because I think our community is very much an atheist community for sure. And I would say we're not explicitly a humanist community. I think almost every single host on this network identifies as a humanist in some capacity, but it usually only becomes relevant when we are like debating a caller or something and they want to defend biblical morality, be it slavery or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And we'll kind of juxtapose like, oh, well, how, what does your framework get you that secular humanism can't, or something along those lines. And so I kind of wanted to know, like, what is humanism to you? Like, let's just start real basic with our audience, and like, not that they need it. I'm sure a lot of them know, but like, if you were to do an elevator pitch for humanism for a group of people like this, what would you say? What does it provide that atheism doesn't?
Yeah, super basic level one. Humanism is a belief that science tells us what's real and empathy tells us what's right. It is a belief in people, right? And the idea that, in human worth, the idea that we all have equal and inherent worth and dignity without needing to be saved or redeemed. It's a belief in human potential, right? That we don't need something to come down from the sky and solve our problems, but that actually we have what it takes to pursue the truth and pursue goodness as long as we live in free societies and in human responsibility, right? That the highest good is not belief in some abstraction, but taking care of each other and our needs in the here and now. And so humanism has been this belief system, this moral system that has guided people throughout history, from Albert Einstein to the founder of Planned Parenthood to Steve Wozniak to A. Philip Randolph, the chairman of the March on Washington. It's something that is, played a part in the American story for a long time as a belief system for folks who don't believe in God.
Yeah, I love that. I at the Secular Student Alliance convention, you had said that something to do with the fact of you think a lot of people are humanists, maybe even the majority of people in the United States, but they just don't know it yet. They don't even know that this is like an option of a direction to go. And I felt like that just rang so true for me and how I think of humanism.
We've done the mapping, actually, right? Like, we go, I'm a humanist, so I love data. And so we've literally gone through mounds and mounds of polling data about what people in the US believe about religion and values. And our belief is that, straight up, there are 45 million humanists in America, and only about 1 to 2 million of them currently identify as humanist. And like, it's not, I don't think it's my job to convert people and tell them what to believe, right? Like, I
Mhm.
don't, I don't like it when people push their beliefs on me or on kids or anything. And so I don't see myself as, my job is not to go out and convince people that they're wrong. My job is to help everyone who believes what we believe feel like they have a home and a community in humanism.
Totally. I absolutely love that. Um, so I'm curious, this is that's like the setup for like what is humanism, the sort of belief in general. What is specifically like the AHA, the American Humanist Association? Like, what are your current goals as an organization? And I'd love to hear you touch on like what being a member does for somebody. Like, what kind of connections does that get them? What information? Like, if someone in our audience wanted to go and become a member of the AHA today, like, what does that do for them?
Totally. So the AHA has been around for 85 years, and Drew McCoy recently described the AHA as like if being on the right side of history was an organization. And I kind of I love that description.
That's
So
pretty good.
the AHA has always worked to do two things. One is to build a community so that people who are not religious but who believe in these humanist values have something to belong to. So we have 250 local groups across the country where humanists can meet up and talk with one another and do work, right? That can fulfill the function of a religious community for people who want that, but don't want something that's going to push God on them, right? We even have humanist chaplains who will work in hospitals or work in prisons and help people who are struggling with questions of life and death, but don't want to talk about God. And the second thing that we do, because humanists have always believed that it's not enough to just have beliefs, you have to fight for them, is we fight to build a more humanist world. And so that means like in Congress and the courts, not just fighting the Christian nationalist right. Like we just sued and we beat the state of West Virginia in court to not send millions of dollars to like a college to teach Catholic studies from the state's water fund. And we've been organizing the biggest interfaith caucus in Congress that's focused on fighting Christian nationalism. But we also work to not just fight back against the Christian right, but actually advocate for things like we were the first membership organization in the country to endorse the right to abortion. And we still today fight for reproductive freedom, LGBTQ freedom. We're still the only secular organization that has called for a ceasefire and conditioning aid to Israel, not using our tax dollars to commit a genocide. So that's what we're trying to do. Bring humanists together and bring us together so that we can fight for our values and build a more humane world.
I love that. That's amazing. Definitely, we need more organizations putting pressure on Israel and that situation. Obviously, you guys know we've talked a lot about the genocide here and how serious and important that is. So I kind of wanted to, you're talking about some of these like local groups and stuff that are being organized around humanism. I kind of wanted to touch on that for a bit because I admittedly have not attended any humanist groups in my area. However, I have looked them up, and it seems that some of the ones in my area, at least, suffer from a certain problem that I think every secular group I've ever known suffers from, which is that a lot of their primary attendants are older, retired, often wealthy and educated folks. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I aspire to be an elderly, educated person one day. But sometimes I worry that younger people, and we kind of talked about this at SSA Con, this is every atheist convention you've ever walked into, it's going to skew the demographics in a certain direction, right? So I'm kind of curious, like, what things do you think are necessary to do, if AHA is already doing them, to sort of help maybe younger people who are, there's a lot of talk about, like, the male loneliness epidemic and like the crisis of isolation that a lot of us are going through that's leading people to do horrific things. Like, I think so many of those people would benefit greatly from feeling like they had a place in a community. But I think sometimes it's hard to relate to the like elderly retired Sunday brunch events. You know what I mean? Not everyone can make that happen. So I'm curious, like, one, if you think my perception is totally off base and the majority are doing something different. Cool. Okay.
On track.
Yeah. So what do you think we can do to make these spaces like more accessible and relatable to younger folks who are like really starving for that sense of community?
I'm going to be totally honest. We have to start new groups, right? And that doesn't mean the existing groups have to shut down. Those spaces are working for the people who are in them. But the few groups I've seen that are truly thriving and multi-generational, like the Central Florida Free Thought Community or Humanist Minnesota, are, we've got to replicate that model, because those are the ones that are actually growing and bringing people in. And so we just made a senior hire at the AHA. You've met Jake,
Yeah.
who is like in charge of our local group product, and we're going to start next year rolling out an initiative to find younger humanists who want to build humanist groups in their communities that are targeted to younger people, that are less focused on like lectures and discussions and more on service and activism. And we're just like, there's room in San Francisco for two different humanist groups. There's room in New York for two humanist groups. We're
Right.
just going to build ones that focus on the needs of young people, and they can interact with those existing groups and have some intergenerational exchange. So, I think there is sometimes like a lot of either or thinking, not just in our movement, but broadly. Like, we don't have to blow up what's existing to also say, hey, we need to go and build something new. We
Right.
can do both and figure out a way to make them work together.
Yeah, I'm also curious because I know you mentioned that you attend a Unitarian Universalist church. You said, I think you even said when you came in, you identify as a Unitarian. Uh, like,
Yep.
so, like, do we always need to like rebuild the wheel, or do you think there are existing like infrastructures like that people can tap into? And obviously, I'm gonna preempt this because I know our audience. You guys are gonna be like, I'm not going to no dang church, no matter how awesome it is. I, you know. I think people are really desperate for community, and maybe it's I know the UU Church in Austin. I've looked it up before, and like it doesn't even seem like they do a lot of services. It almost seems like they just do weekly
Mm.
activism. Like they're just like, oh, this every Sunday we attend this activist meeting or this direct action kind of thing. So yeah, like are do you think there is already infrastructure that people can tap into, or do you think we really do need to kind of like whole cloth build some new versions? I mean, I guess it's probably both to a certain extent, right?
Both and right, like
Yeah.
there is Sunday Assembly, and there is like the ethical culture societies, and there's Oasis, right? There are gathering spaces that are explicitly humanist that are in some cities and working pretty well there. And there are places like Unitarian Universalism that are like spaces for people of lots of different beliefs, but that are explicitly welcoming of humanists and affirming of humanists. And those things might not work for everyone, right? Like a lot of the practice of like gathering, especially on a Sunday, around like a shared text study and like facing the speaker, like I get that feels sometimes really triggering for some people with religious trauma. And like, I don't think you need to go to that kind of thing to be a good humanist if it's not for you. I think that those are things that I'm always encouraging people to explore and figure out is right for them. But we also need to keep building. Right, this is part of humanism, is the idea that we can't accept the status quo. We always have to be leaning into this question of what can we invent next. And so I think the existence of those models, which I love and are great, shouldn't stop us from trying new stuff and seeing what we can create.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely, I just, I know there's so many of people in our audience and people generally right now who are suffering with that sense of loneliness. And, I think atheists
Mhm.
online often feel like this is the only place they really have connection. And so as we start to move into these, really dire political times, I really want people to know that there are lots of options available for them where they can find community and find connection. And maybe you have to start building something of your own to a certain extent, but like we're definitely in a crisis of isolation, and it's sad to see a lot of broken, people feeling really hurt and alone. And I think these are the things that make me excited. Like, and part of the reason I wanted to bring up like the UU stuff and these other organizations who are already doing a lot of this is because I think also as secular groups we often recognize that we don't have a fraction of the money or influence that a lot of these pre-established organizations do, right? Like it's easy for a
Mhm.
church to offer, Sunday services, where they're like watching your kid while you do this and that, and like little school sessions and like all of this stuff because they have all these money and resources that we just generally speaking like do not have, like at least not even in comparison to them, not, not even a blip on their radar.
That's right. No, it's entirely right. And I think that's, one of the reasons that thinking expansively about who belongs in our coalition and thinking creatively about partnerships is part of how we're going to get from the world we have now, where Christian nationalism is literally breathing down our neck, right? Where we have a vice president who says that you and I aren't moral people. We can't be moral. We don't have a moral code because we don't believe in
Yeah.
God. To a world where we go back to what the founders originally wanted, which is a world where, like Jefferson said, the opinions of men are not the object of civil government nor under its jurisdiction, where we literally just have the freedom to be who we are and be treated as equal citizens. Part of that is we have to, think about creatively about where we can gather and how we can work with people who share our values, even if they don't always share our views on the supernatural. And that's something humanists have always believed, is like, we're not, we're not theists. That's humanism has always been grounded on the idea that the natural world is what we have, and we have to build our ideas of what is right and what is, and what is true on what we can observe and see and test. But we've also said, and we've always said, we believe in partnership with people with differing but humane views. And so that's, give you an example, right? Like next week, our team is going to be in Texas, and we're going to be at an interfaith conference of chaplains that are working to oppose a bill that's going to put chaplains in public schools, because we don't believe that's where chaplains belong. Where they don't belong in, like, preaching and pushing their religion on kids who are too young to make these decisions for themselves. And so what we're going to have are, as a humanist chaplain sitting next to Christian chaplains and Sikhs and Hindus and Jews, talking about how we protect real religious freedom, because the truth is, like, there are a lot of people of faith who are on our side in that fight.
Yeah, I completely agree. You're definitely picking up where I'm going, because, like, I think a lot of our viewers here on the line would consider themselves anti-theist in some capacity. I know some of our hosts consider themselves anti-theist, and I don't think it's necessarily the notion that, like, theists should cease to exist or anything like that, right? They're not advocating for something like truly like horrific or deranged, but it's more of the belief that like religious thinking as a whole is damaging, and that if you can identify a flawed epistemology at any step in your thinking, that we as skeptics have this like duty to root that out. And it leads to an apprehension, I think, when we talk about coalition building with theists who may otherwise share our values and our goals of, ending fascism and ending white Christian nationalism in the country. But I think it makes them apprehensive as to whether or not those people are like trustworthy allies in this fight. And I guess like, we had a Qasim Rashid, who's a human rights lawyer. He's phenomenal. I like sharing his stuff over and over again, like almost every single day on Israel and Gaza. And April LaJoy has been attending a lot of secular events recently, trying to kind of join in the fight for coalition building. And so, I guess I just kind of like, if you're talking to like any of our audience who are out there who are like, and sorry, I'm like caveating 18 times over. If any of our audience is like, bristling at this, like, oh, I can't imagine working with a Christian. Like, their thinking is obviously flawed. What if that leads to them having bad ideas in other places? And you want to call, I do invite you to call in about it. We're going to make space specifically for callers like that tonight. So if you're feeling like a lot of aversion or, maybe sort of like a trauma response even to that notion, like, please call in, because if you were to talk to those people, Fish, like, kind of what's your pitch on like why we really need to be working in collaboration with, a pluralistic, framework of beliefs in sort of our approach?
I mean, the first thing I'd say is that, I don't think we need to ask people to work directly with folks or with systems that have traumatized them, right? It's easy for me to show up and do interfaith coalition work because I was raised atheist, right? I was raised humanist. this is something where I haven't necessarily had to grow up in an abusive religious environment. And I understand how hard it would be. I talk with folks on my team who are evangelicals, and I understand that, I have a different set of feelings that comes up of discomfort when I'm in those spaces than
Mhm.
they do. So, that's one thing, right? We all have different ways we can engage in the work, and not everyone has to show up in ways that are uncomfortable. But more broadly, right? Like, part of the question that I always ask is like, what do we mean by theism? What do the people in the room with us mean by theism? Right? Because, like, there are things I'm against, right? Like, I'm against the concept of original sin. I'm deeply against the idea that, like, people are born broken and they need to bend their knee to some authority to be redeemed. Like, I think that is bullshit. Right? The idea that you can only be made whole and worthy by pledging yourself to some authority, any authority, religious or secular, that grates on me. I don't like that. I deny that. I resist that with my entire body and my entire life. But at the same time, right? Like, I run into Unitarian Universalist people all the time who are like, well, I agree with all the things you're saying, but like, I don't know if I'm a humanist because I believe in God. And I'm like, okay, what is God? And they're like, well, God is love.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I believe in love, right? Like, I experience love, right? Like, I see the ways in which love moves the world. Love is an emotion that we've tracked for thousands of years. Like, love is a real thing. And if I'm hanging out in a space with someone who believes in love, that love is meaningful and powerful and important the way I do, and they call it God, then, like, we don't have a difference of values. We don't even have a difference of epistemology. We have a difference of semantics. And I don't think that when you're at a time when we are in a fight for our lives and our civil liberties and the civil liberties and lives of people we love, I don't think we define the boundaries of our coalition based on semantics. I think we define them based on values. And, I think the final thing I'd say is, like, there's a there's a chant that gets repeated in movement spaces a lot that I learned when I was young that goes, "It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains." And, like, I think the most important part of that, and the part that gets lost, is the part that says it is our duty to win. And in the
Hmm.
world we are in now, where Christian nationalists don't, you know, represent some segment of the population, like 4% of the population agrees with Project 2025, but they've captured our system, our legal system, our political system. Like, we need to build a coalition that is capable of resisting the advantage they've built, and that means it needs to be bigger than us. Right? So if it's our duty to win, that means it is our duty to be in partnership with people, enough people to get past them. And if that means working with someone whose beliefs are different than mine in a way that makes me uncomfortable, like, I'm going to sit with that discomfort, because ultimately it's going to be way harder for me to look back and be like, I didn't do everything I could to fight so that if I have a trans grandchild, right, their rights are respected in the same way mine are right now.
100%. Yeah. I don't think people sometimes will frame the left as like uniquely predisposed to sort of attacking our own. And I really don't think that's the case. The right does this all the time too. I mean, you know,
Oh, yeah.
days before what happened to Charlie Kirk a few days ago, a prominent right wing figure was accusing him of stabbing Trump in the back for not being 100% in line on Trump's agenda. So like that, this is definitely like it happens to all movements, but I do really want our audience to be, you guys have been so good so much of the time about when we call you to get activated about something, like you've really gotten invested. And so part of why I was so excited to bring Fish on tonight is because I've heard him talk. I've heard him go through a lot of this stuff before. And I really wanted you guys to hear that to hopefully get you excited and activated for a lot of these similar things. Because I think, I think most of the spots on the show are going to continue to be atheist. Like that is what this network is built on. But I look forward to a lot more collaborations with people who, like Fish is talking about, are really sharing our values and caring about what we care about ultimately for outcomes for everyone, right? I'm really excited about that. Now, kind of shifting gears a little bit, I was kind of curious. Like, I think some people might think that this channel is sort of, built almost on a framework of mocking theists. I think you could make a good argument that in a lot of cases, we've alienated some theists because of some of the content we made. I do make an effort to primarily attack ideas. Like a lot of our thumbnails are quotes of something the person said. If they say something truly horrific, like defending biblical slavery, I will often attack them as a person in the title as well. But it's kind of bringing me to this idea that, like, a lot of people have been talking in like the sort of atheist secular sphere about how debate content is really not working anymore. Debate has kind of changed fundamentally. And I feel like the primary goal of debate used to be that you could convince people of your ideas, right? And bring them kind of to think like you. And now I'm kind of thinking that this is still present, but it's more of a secondary effect. I think the primary effect or primary goal of a lot of these kinds of debate style conversations is more of identity confirmation in a lot of ways. It feels good for the lone atheist in a small town in the South to see a Matt Dillahunty totally blow through a caller's argument who sounds a lot like their conservative dad. It feels good to be like, somebody who gets me, who gets why that's a problem. It's there. That is a valuable thing. I don't think that's not worth it. But, I think there's also the element of like, how do we reach new people and sort of convince them that like these values are worth their time. And you kind of touched on it earlier. And I like how you were saying, like, I think they already share our values. It's how do we get them to know that the message exists, right? And so I guess I was kind of wondering if you could just expand on, if you had any thoughts on that, like a prescription for the problem is what I wrote in my notes here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a, and I think you're right. Like there's value in debate. Like I always think there's value in critical inquiry, and I think there's especially value, as you said, in the kind of person who sees Matt engaging with someone who reminds them of their conservative dad or their abusive mom, and like, and decimating them in the way he does. But the other thing I think is true is that most people, even most atheists, if you ask them to picture the most religious person they can think of, chances are they're not going to think of someone who is abusive. They're going to think of grandma, right? Like they're often going to think of someone who they love and who loves them and is religious, but wasn't religious in an abusive way, right? And so that, like, there are so many people who think like us, who don't, like, a belief in God is not what guides their lives. Like a belief in showing up for humanity is what guides their lives, as it should be. But maybe their experience being raised in religion wasn't traumatic, or maybe they have family members who are traditions that they're really attached to, who are attached to religion, and they don't want to be a part of a space that feels like it's anti-grandma. And so I think that, we need to be creating experiences and creating spaces that are holistic and welcoming of as many people as possible. And that means we've got to be offering for those people something that's affirmative, something that's saying, hey, you don't, membership in this community is not based on the kinds of things you reject or mock, but it's based on you having, your own affirmative beliefs in what is good and what is true and what matters. I think people are dead tired of all of the like performative hostility in the world right now. I think that absolutely, right? Like we need to take the fascists and the Christian nationalists and we need to fight them on the beaches. We need to lay down in front of the trucks. Like we don't need to get compromisey and lovey-dovey with people who are trying to erode our fundamental rights. But we also need to offer a vision of the kind of world we're fighting for. That is the kind of thing that ultimately gets people to get in the fight and stay in the fight who might be on the sidelines right now.
Yeah, I've struggled with this a little bit at the line because, I don't think we can really fundamentally change our structure. And I don't think we have to. Like, I think one thing I like that we do at the line is we kind of acknowledge where our weaknesses are. And we have organizations who we partner with who were like, hey, we aren't mental health counselors are trained, and it sounds like what you're dealing with is specifically trauma. So, we send you to recovering from religion or something like that. And I think similarly, I don't know how much we'll be able to provide kind of what you were talking about there. I think we're great on the identity confirmation, the debate sort of thing. I do aspire to have my approach be one that can be more effective. I've been reading some stuff lately about what's effective at actually changing people's minds and how I can start to approach my framing in that way. But I do look forward to, like, as more organizations start to pop up that can fill those gaps, being able to be it's like we're almost like specialized organelles in a cell. Like, we can do this thing, and then we can send you guys over to this side of the cell where you get exactly the other thing that you need, and kind of give a comprehensive treatment for people. Because, I think there's I have a sense, maybe this is a personal flaw of mine, that we kind of have to give them everything here. And I think that's kind of unrealistic, sometimes. But I do aspire to give them as much as we can. And so I appreciate conversations with you, because I feel like sometimes your approach is so rooted in humanism, and my approach so much comes from loving debate and loving arguing and really valuing, facts winning in conversation. But facts don't always win, if you're not able to, like, really reach that person in their value system. Sometimes facts just bounce right off. And so I aspire to...
Oh, and we need everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we need all of it. If you think about any single successful social movement, two things have been true about it. One is that they've always been intergenerational, multiracial, and cross-class. Always. The second is that they've always embraced multiple approaches, some of which are more confrontational, some of which are more bridge building, right? Mm-hmm. There has never been a successful social movement that's like, everybody has to go and fight the fight or work towards justice this way, and we're just going to push everybody out who wants to do it the other way. We need people, because people respond to different approaches, right? Like, this is... By training, I'm a developmental psychology nerd, right? Like, this is part of what drew me back to humanism as a movement. Is like, I studied the humanistic psychologist in college and graduate school, and specifically studied, like, moral development, right? Like, how we come to believe what we believe and how people come to be good people. And two things are true. One is that, like, yeah, you often don't change people's minds through facts and logic. You change it often through proximity and emotion, right? Like, as people... Like, the best way to reduce people's bias against atheists is for them to have a personal relationship with an atheist, right? Or to realize that their neighbor or their friend or their aunt or somebody who they love is an atheist. But also, the other thing that we know to be true is that not everybody operates the same way, right? You can't just say, oh yeah, this is how humans think, and apply it to every single person. That's why we needed a breadth of approaches, because the stuff that we're doing at the AHA is not going to reach everyone. The stuff that you're doing is not going to reach everyone. And yet we can't do everything, nor can you, or it's going to feel disjointed and authentic. And so right. I think one of the things, and this is an issue on the right, on the left, in secular communities, in religious communities, we gotta get better at saying, like, we don't have to do all the stuff the same way. And it's okay for me to be the kind of person I am and sit in the kind of change making that's comfortable for me, and for you to do that too. As long as we got the same values, we can do this stuff differently, and that's okay. And we can work together where it makes sense, like right here.
Totally. I know we get criticism sometimes on here because we throw down. It's blood sports sometimes. And I think, but we also have a lot of people who really benefit from it. And they tell us that that helped them deconvert, it helped them understand their own positions better. But I absolutely think you're right that, like, this is kind of, again, more to this sense of, like, the importance of coalition building here, of, like, really bringing in all of the best minds, all hands on deck, because we're heading out of the eye of the storm. It's no longer getting peaceful. We're going right into the thick of it, and we really need everyone to be on deck for this. So last thought, and then we'll take some calls. I do see we already have some lines filling up.
Nice.
Yeah, there are open lines as well. The number is 720-619-2288 if you would like to call in. I wanted to talk about, like, some of the new stuff that's coming out from the AHA. I know we had talked about the creator fund that you guys are launching, and amidst a dark money scandal with Democratic influencers, not staking out a public position on that here right now. But, like, funding progressive humanist creators, I think nobody disagrees that right now the left is at a massive disadvantage compared to the right. Like, they've been building the Heritage Foundation and all of these networks to promote conservative ideology for decades upon decades. And on the left, we're really just kind of getting in the arena. And one of the ways that that's happening is through like what you guys are doing at the AHA. And so, I like, how's that going? What's going on? Are people able to help with that in any way at all? Like, our audience loves to throw money at progressive causes they love.
So I think a thing I would love to see the AHA grow into in 10 years is to be the heritage foundation of the left, right? Like the organization that makes the moral case for progressive policy rooted in American values and a belief system that is beyond partisan politics, right? And what we're looking at right now is what has the religious right done for the past few decades, right? Like one thing is like they have worked to conquer every level of government. So this week we were hosting a candidate training for humanists who want to run for local office, right? Because we have a PAC at the AHA that helps support people running for Congress or state senator, but we're going to train people to run for city council, run for school board. We've done it before, but we're going to do it in greater numbers, right? The second thing that the religious right has done is they use the legal system to their benefit, and they like the idea that they are putting forward now, like ending birthright citizenship. They would get laughed at 30 years ago for saying something like that, and they just kept doing it and working on that legal theory until they won. And so we have a legal center at the AHA that is just sued West Virginia, just won a case in Florida. We are getting ready to sue some other, let me put it this way, these are some conservative groups whose names you might recognize, but I can't say them because we're working on that litigation right now.
Okay.
We are testing that same theory of, can we try as many theories as possible and see what sticks even in a captured judiciary? And the final thing we're doing is we have to win the online culture war. We cannot, you know this as well as I do, we cannot cede the dominance of the online media world to the right. It is a failure of our movement. It is a failure of the movement that the kind of people who listened to Sam Harris 15 years ago are now listening to Jordan Peterson. That is happening right now, and we did not pick up that infrastructure, right? So one of the things that we're doing at the AHA, we just launched a creator fund that is investing in humanist and secular content creators. Literally, like, we are buying ads on people's videos, and we're doing it, we're trying to make it so that people who are just starting out, like, will be the people who buy your first ad, and hoping to make it so that secular content creators can professionalize and build their audiences and get stronger, and also that like people can get good information about humanism and find a place where they belong, and that like people like Drew McCoy, who helped us design and launch the creator funds, like don't have to take ads for places like stamps.com that they don't really believe in, and actually that they can build their business and their livelihood by advertising for movements that they believe in. So we had an amazing anonymous donor who helped us, gave us 6 figures to launch this creator fund. And
awesome.
It's something that y'all can contribute to too at AmericanHumanist.org. All the money goes to creators.
And you're not demanding that they're secretive about this process?
No, oh my god. So I can say this because I like grew up in Democratic Party world, right? Like the Democratic Party is just like run by all the adults who really wanted to be the like school hall monitor as a kid, right? Like,
yeah,
defined by like risk aversion as a first principle, like so committed to process and rules. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that when these people went to creators, they were like, oh, but here's this list of rules you have to follow. Like, obviously we talk to creators and we have like things where like, hey, please don't put our ads in a video that's like, here's why everyone who believes in God is a stupid idiot.
Sure.
But like, we're not going to go and tell people like, hey, here's what you are and aren't allowed to say about Israel as a condition of getting our money. We were like, we want to fund people who align with our beliefs. And if you do that, we're not going to try and change the content you make. We want to give you money to make more of it.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. It's transparency, right? Like, I think nobody's objecting to the left starting to compete with the infrastructure that the right has on funding media. Like, that is 100% something that just like completely echo what you said, that we are in desperate need of. In light of awful things like what happened to Charlie Kirk earlier this week, it's a temptation to, I think, on the left, like, we recognize sometimes the damage that the online ecosystem does to us. And so we aspire to log off to a certain degree. And that is valuable, but also like we need so many more voices. We are not even close to enough. And I always say this with a caveat that you guys have to recognize if you get into this, you have to have pretty thick skin. You will get a lot of abuse online, and I mean a lot. It's like a never-ending onslaught. But if you have thick skin, I think there's just no shortage of voices that we could have adding right now to this. So we are gonna move on here and take calls in just a minute. The lines are still open, so that's 720-619-2288. There are links in the description, so if you want to check out the American Humanist Association or FISH or anything else they're doing, you guys can go click through those links down in the description below. But all right. How are you feeling? You ready to take some calls?
I'm ready. Let's do it, Arden.
All right. Our first caller here. Oops, hold on one second. My thing that lets me put the little banners up has crashed out. There we go. Our first caller today is Andrew. Him from New Jersey. He is a new regular caller. He is a theist, and he wants to say why he thinks that atheism makes us immoral. So,
all right, bet.
Yeah, he's taking the bait right away. So, Andrew, you are live on the line with Arden and Fish. What's going on? Oops, my apologies. I had this muted. Can we start that again? Here, I'm going to start it over so it's good for the clip. Andrew, him in New Jersey is a theist. You are live on the line with Arden and Fish. What's going on?
What's going on, Arden? What's going on, Mr. Stark?
Feeling good.
Hey, Andrew, what's up?
Yeah, I'm not calling you Fish. I'm calling you Mr. Stark. It sounds a lot better.
I mean, okay, it's gonna make me sound like Iron Man, but you do what you want to do, man.
Yeah, that's the point. I think atheism. I don't know if atheism in and of itself is immoral, but from my personal experience, as we saw with the last, assassination of Charlie Kirk, a lot of leftists on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook just straight mocked his death. Like, they just called him all kinds of names. They called his wife all kinds of names. And it was horrible. And most leftists identify as secular or atheist, and and I don't see any religious people mocking him, and they all seem to be secular.
Well, go ahead.
Like who? Like who was mocking him?
It was a bunch of random progressives on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but they a lot.
But
some
a
of them
couple
went
examples,
viral.
like specific people. Because I can name people. I can name a whole list of progressives who condemned it. But I'm not saying you're wrong. But tell me who those people are.
What, you want individual names?
Yeah. Just a few.
Yeah, I don't know the individual names. I was just watching the videos. I'm not saying that some leftists don't condemn it, but when they do condemn it, they'll say, "Oh, we don't condone what happened, but he was a fascist. He was a horrible person. He was a Nazi." They'll say things like that. So they will say they don't defend it, while at the same time it sounds like they kind of defend it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm saying it right, but yeah.
Well, here's a question. You believe somebody could be a bad person and still deserve to live? Because I believe that. I think there are a lot of people who I consider bad people, but I don't want them to get shot, and I don't want them to be killed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what people are getting at. I don't know, Arden, what do you think?
I was just gonna say, I think like my hopes for Charlie Kirk would be that he lived to see an age where his daughters disowned him and were really frustrated with him because they thought his views were despicable. I think that would have been justice for Charlie Kirk. I don't think a violent shot in the neck is justice at all. I wish I hadn't seen the video. I think I probably would have been a little bit more cold about it if I hadn't seen the video. But I think what I find frustrating about this, Andrew, is that it feels like a little bit of a double standard to me, because when you point out that there are some progressive creators who are, mocking or celebrating this, right? I think Fish was very astute to point out that there are people that we don't know. They're kind of just random accounts. But yet this morning on Fox News, the president of the United States said that right-wing extremism is justified because it's about them caring about crime, whereas the left wing, they just hate everyone and want to make everyone transgender, which is like unhinged. But he's like the actual president of the United States, right? So it's like the left is being held accountable for the things that nobody, small accounts are saying, whereas the right isn't being even held accountable for what the most influential person in their entire party is saying.
Well, yeah, I agree. I mean, there's some people on the very far right that wanted Charlie dead. Like, I know Charlie was a big Israel supporter, so they wanted him dead too. So I do agree that there's extremism on both sides. I just see it, from my experience, more from the progressives side, who claim that they like the church. I mean, like the stabbing on the train, where on CNN, one of the reporter tried to kind of downplay it, and he says, "Oh, he was just crazy. He was just crazy." When people on the right, they were saying this is a racially motivated hate crime. He should be locked away. A lot of people on the left tried to downplay it. They didn't condone it, but they just say, "Oh, he was just some crazy guy. This is a problem with our healthcare system and stuff like that." And that I don't like.
Well, Andrew, let me say, I think Arden and I both agree on this, right? Like, whenever somebody calls for violence against a person, whether it's from the right or the left or the center or anything, that is something that to me is hard immoral. I condemn it. But neither or I can name a single person on the left who has said that the Charlie Kirk shooting was okay. But I can tell you, Senator Mike Lee from Utah posted favorably on Twitter after the Democratic Speaker of the House in Minnesota was shot. And I can tell you that Donald Trump Jr. posted favorably on Twitter after Paul Pelosi was attacked with a hammer in his own home. And if you look at the data, and again, I think it's wrong whether it comes from the right or the left. I will condemn it harder when it comes from the left because it's my people, and I don't think it's within our values to act like that. But if you look at the data on who commits politically motivated attacks in this country, those come 5 times as much from right-wing extremists as left-wing extremists. And I'm not trying to say I think all right-wing people are violent. I'm not trying to say you, as someone who is on the right, supports that. I can tell that you don't. But let's be clear about the facts here. If you look at the crimes that actually happen, predominantly they are coming from people on the right, not the left. Do you have data to suggest otherwise?
Actual numbers? I mean, I can...
My data comes from the University of Maryland and their research center on extremism and violent crime.
So did they how did they gather this data? Did they call up people and say, "Hey, what political affiliation are you a part of?" How did they gather this data?
It's whenever there is a hate crime or a politically motivated crime, right? It gets investigated, just like the shooting against Charlie Kirk is in now. And the investigators will say "Oh, this is why this person committed this murder." Right? And obviously we know a lot of murders are because somebody was having an affair or because somebody was crazy. But when it is a hate crime, when it is politically motivated, they make a note of it was right-wing violence, it was left-wing violence, it was radical Islamic violence. And then these researchers at the University of Maryland looked through all of the data about why people committed these hate crimes. And the majority of them, by a large factor, number one, by far, was right-wing extremists, then radical Islam extremists way far behind, then left-wing extremists after that.
Okay, I'll check that out. You said the University of Maryland. I'll check it out later on.
Yeah, University of Maryland. Check it out and come back and tell me if I'm wrong, because it's important to get this stuff right. And again, I'm not saying it's ever right no matter who it comes from, and I'm not saying that I don't think most people on the right support that kind of violence. But to me, when I see a party that's led by somebody like Donald Trump, who talks about when people at his rallies protest him, he says, "Go beat that guy up," right? Or he has people like Stephen Miller in his cabinet or in his circle of advisors who are talking in the most derogatory and hateful terms about immigrants or what they want to do to them. Or you got J.D. Vance, who on Saturday, literally on Saturday, right? The U.S. government bombed a ship of non-combatants in the Caribbean. And somebody called him out and they're like, "Hey, blowing up citizens of other countries without a declaration of war is a violation of international law. and said on Twitter, I don't give a shit what you call it. It was the right thing to do. That's the
Wait, who
kind
determined
of
that they were
culture they are promoting in the party right now.
Who determined that they were not enemy combatants?
Well, it's not the
fact
obligation.
That we're not at war with Venezuela.
It's also not an obligation.
You need a declaration of war for there to be enemy combatants. Sorry, Arden.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say this is also a reversal of the burden of proof, right? This is like saying we have to prove God doesn't exist. Like, you have to prove that those are enemy combatants and that it was a warranted strike. We don't have to prove that they weren't enemy combatants and otherwise the strike is justified.
Well, I think if the government, because they have all the intelligence, if they say that they're enemy combatants, we don't have the intelligence to know that they're enemy combatants or not. Like, we think that we're, from our opinion, they have the intelligence.
But Andrew, when these things traditionally happened, usually what happens is the president gets in front of a screen and says, you know, at 10:31 p.m. on this day, we fired a strike with these missiles from these crafts on this ship for this reason. This was an operation carried out and recommended by my the head of my, Department of War now, I guess. They explain the whole rationale behind it. They didn't do that on this. Like Fish just pointed out, JD Vance is just like, I don't really care. That was the right thing to do. We just decided it. We're just putting forward the edict.
So the president didn't announce this. He didn't say anything. He just was like, okay, that's fine.
Not in the way that builds. I don't think he actually made an official statement, but I think he's responded since in news pressings, but he didn't release like a statement on this, as was standard for almost every similar military action of the past.
No, we're just making policy by Twitter now. And, you can't, again, right? Like, there are certainly times in the country where we've been at war, right? And there's, sometimes people die in war, and that's a fact of life. But the government can't just go bombing people in a foreign country because it feels like it without a declaration of war or without proof that they're involved in some kind of terroristic activity, right? Because when you have that, like, that in itself is a terroristic act. That's why we have international law. And by the way, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was written by a humanist. I want to point that out. And so again, all I'm saying, I don't think you would have dropped that bomb, Andrew, necessarily. But what I'm saying is that the culture at the very top of the political right now is saying, I don't give a shit what you call it. I don't care about international law. I don't care about the rules. If I think these guys are bad guys, I'm going to drop a bomb on them. And that, I think, is really terrible for the country.
Okay, one last thing because I know a lot of leftists, they want Israel to be defunded. I know that Israel is a very tiny state. If the U.S. and other nations that give them weapons stop giving them weapons, the Arab nations will destroy them extremely quickly. So if rockets are being fired at buildings at Israel through the Gaza Strip, how do you conduct a military operation in that tiny state, in that tiny area like that, without killing civilians?
So I'll give you a great example, man. It just happened in Qatar, right? Like we wave our hands. We're like, oh, Netanyahu can't possibly take out Hamas without killing all these civilians. And then what did they do a few days ago? They literally said it. They were like, we carefully conducted a precision strike on the leaders of Hamas so as not to kill any civilians. Like, let's be clear. The Israeli military is one of the best funded, most sophisticated militaries in the world. They absolutely have the ability to carry out targeted, precise strikes. They did it in Lebanon. They did it in Qatar. They could do it in Gaza if they wanted to, but they don't want to. And,
Well, I'm saying when it comes to the Gaza Strip, I don't know too much about Qatar, but when it comes to the Gaza Strip, they send QR codes, they do leaflets, they do text messages, they do like knock groupings and stuff. They do, they tell civilians to, hey, go to this area. I mean, the Gaza Strip is like 2 million people.
But then they also bomb those areas and the hospitals that they can go to get help if they get hit in those areas, if they, couldn't leave because they're already missing a limb from the previous strike.
Yeah,
and here's the thing, Andrew.
Hamas, they set up.
So Andrew, I'm not an expert on international law. You're not an expert on international law. Arden's not an expert on
No.
international law. Every single expert group on international law, whether it's Amnesty International, whether it's the Human Rights Campaign, whether it's Israeli human rights groups like B'Tselem, right? They have said Netanyahu and his cabinet are committing war crimes, right? And you can, right, like, you can drop leaflets and still commit a war crime, right? Like, right now, Gaza is being blockaded. They're prevented from any food aid getting in. They're systematically bombing hospitals. They're often dropping bombs indiscriminately. And you've got ministers in Netanyahu's cabinet talking about, like, wanting to turn Gaza into a parking lot, seeing Gazans as animals. And, some line viewers might not be happy with me about this. Like, I think there should be a Jewish state, right? Like, I think there should be, because of all the genocide Jews have faced throughout history, I think there should be a place where Jews are the demographic majority. But I don't think that, like, that state should just be allowed to commit war crimes with money from my paycheck.
Well, I understand that, but, like, I mean, if the Arabs would have just accepted the two-state solution, we wouldn't have this problem. But they rejected it. They rejected the two-state solution, and they decided to wage war, and they lost. And so now
when did they reject the two-state solution?
I believe it was in I think it was either 1948, where they said they wanted. Even in Israel's declaration, they wanted the Arabs to stay, but the Arabs, they was just like, no, we don't want. They rejected that, and they just decided to wage war on the state of Israel.
I'm not sure that we're necessarily completely accurately reflecting history on this, and I'm not a expert on the history of the Middle East or how these dynamics work. So I want to maybe stray away a little bit from this, but, like, so you called in to talk about kind of, that you think atheism makes people immoral. So I just kind of want to see if we can loop this thread back in around to what you called in about. Like, what is, like, how is our position immoral? Because what you're objecting to is that secular people are saying, like, no genocide in Gaza. Like, are you pro-genocide, or, like, what's the deal? That doesn't really make sense, right? Like, how is being anti-genocide immoral?
Well, I don't have numbers. Like, in my opinion, I think Israel is, when it comes to Gaza, they're doing the best that they could possibly do. Now, I've heard that people really said that they have some of the. I'm not an expert on this, but I've heard that Israel has some of the best civilian to casualty ratio. Like when a lot of Gaza's numbers come from the Palestinian ministry.
If I can, Andrew, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I really don't want to do that. I just heard a thing. If you have, like, numbers or something you've looked into, I'm happy to consider that, but I don't really just want to contend with what you think you heard. You feel me?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I looked into the Palestinian numbers.
Here's my question, right? Like, we could go round and round about Israel. There are other shows for that, right? Like, there are atheists that don't think what's happening is a genocide, and there are Christians and plenty of Jews, by the way, who are opposed to what's going on in Israel, right? So that's not really a basis to say atheists are immoral, right? Even if you think that what's going on in Gaza right now is moral, which I don't. What is the reason, Andrew, that you think atheists are immoral?
I know most atheists are. They seem to be consequentialists. So
okay. Let's go down this road. I love it. Why is consequentialism immoral? Why is it immoral for me to think that things are bad because they have bad consequences?
I don't think that. I think you need a mixture of both, like, like sort of like consequentialism and sort of like, because I don't want to rely purely on consequentialism, because it can lead to all kinds of, like, the no harm principle. Like, it can lead to all kinds of I want to say degeneracy.
Give me an example.
Like, in my view, well,
yeah, like in your view.
Like, in my view, yeah, like, I think that.
Waiting with bated breath,
homosexuality.
Okay, homosexual. Sorry.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
It is. There it is. Okay. All right. No, that's okay. So let's keep following the line. Why is homosexuality immoral?
Because it's not natural.
Well, that's not true. The countless species have homosexual behavior. So, yeah, exactly. What do you mean by natural? Like
they can't reproduce. Like they're immoral because the Bible. Because I'm a Christian, the Bible says that it's immoral too.
So yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say. So I'm gonna put aside the Bible because I really don't care what the Bible says. Lots of acts don't result in reproduction. Are all of those unnatural and immoral?
Like you're talking about like oral sex and stuff?
I mean, I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, that is a good example. I'm trying to find what the threshold is.
Yeah, I think oral sex is immoral.
You do? You think only reproductive sex is moral?
Either that or like like casual, like regular sex, not anal sex, not blow jobs, all that stuff. No, I think all that stuff's immoral.
So I mean, so Andrew, I just want to point out, right? I can't tell you what's immoral or not immoral to you, but you are putting yourself in a very, very small category of people in America that does not even include most religious people to say oral sex is immoral, right? Like any sexual act that doesn't result in reproduction is immoral, right? Like I'm pretty sure that most religious people have plenty of sex that is not reproductive in nature, right? So like, let's acknowledge you're on a very tiny minority here saying that that's immoral. It's not just that puts you not just against atheists, but most people in the world.
Oh, well, okay. Let me clarify. Is morality like subjective or objective?
I mean, so
what do you think?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're great.
I think it's subjective.
You think it's objective, and what do you mean? Well, like, what does that mean?
No,
like,
subjective. I think it's subjective.
Oh, it is subjective.
Okay. I would largely agree. I think you can have objective decisions with regard to your framework, but that the framework that you choose is ultimately your choice. Even when you appeal to God, that is just God's feels. That is, God is the subject in that situation. I would agree with you, probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that a lot of Christians, they try to go objective, and I don't think they need to do that. I think we can be subjective, morally subjective, just like the secularists.
So I guess now the question becomes, if you have subjectively decided that a biblical, God-based morality is your framework, why?
What do you mean?
Like, what is it that secular or humanism, like, for example, I'm inclined to say secular humanism, but humanism is a little bit more broad than that. What, like, you heard us talk about humanism throughout the whole opening tonight, right? Like, what is it about humanism that you aren't getting that you are getting from the Bible?
What is it about humanism that I'm not getting from the Bible?
Right. Like, what led you to subjectively, if you're saying you subjectively decided on like a biblical morality, and that's kind of why you think, it seems like that's really the reason why you think homosexuality is wrong. I would also say that being gay is wrong, because homosexuality is kind of not really, it's kind of a political term in a sense. It has the slur in it and the word sex in it, when really gay relationships are about love and companionship and bonding and, compassion for each other. So what is it about gay relation, back to the question. So you're against gay relationships because it's not biblical, but you're acknowledging that you subjectively chose the Bible. So I'm like asking why? What's in the Bible that makes you choose that framework over something like humanism?
I mean, growing up, I never heard of humanism. That's why because I've always thought that uh, the creation of the universe. The atheist perspective that they have on the creation of the universe, it never made any sense to me. Like, I hear a lot of secularists, they just say, "Oh, the universe was, it just boomed into existence," and I hear, and and I don't see how like an explosion over billions of years created life on Earth. It just never made any sense to me. It just seemed more like a powerful entity created all this. To me, it just made more sense.
So the idea of the universe being created without God isn't satisfying you. I get that. I think a lot of people want a more satisfying story than the one that there's scientific evidence to provide. But like, what does that have to do with morality?
Oh no, I was just answering Arden's question why he said why I chose the Bible instead of secular humanism. I mean,
that's okay.
I mean, sorry.
It's all good.
Sure.
So I'm kind of curious though. You did say like, when I asked you why you didn't pick humanism, the first thing you said was that you just didn't hear about it growing up, and now you've heard about it. So, are you still opposed to humanism? Sounds like you might not be.
Well, yeah, I still am.
You still are? What?
I'm still.
And why is that, Andrew?
I'm still opposed to it. Because
See, that's
I'm sorry.
No. Keep going.
Oh, I don't know. It just makes more sense. The Bible just makes more sense to me. Yeah, I don't really have a real logical reason.
I mean, that's fair. I think that's true of a lot of people. They don't have a lot of real logical reasons for believing a lot of frameworks they have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I guess
people,
what I'd say, Andrew, is like you may not have heard of humanism, but you probably heard of like Albert Einstein, right? Or like Jonas Salk, who created the polio vaccine, or Peter Singer, right? Like a lot of people who have done really incredible things throughout our world. Jane Addams, who created Hill House. A. Philip Randolph, who was the chairman of the March on Washington, marched alongside Martin Luther King. All of those people were humanists and talked about their humanism as the belief system that led them to go do good things. And so it's surprising to me that you'd say you're opposed to humanism, because I'm not going to go out here and say I'm opposed to Christianity. I'm not a Christian. I don't believe in Christianity, but like, I don't know, some of the best people I know in my life have been guided by Christianity to do good things. And, sometimes it convinces people to do bad things. I'm opposed to people doing bad things, whether it's in the name of Christianity, atheism, Judaism, what have you. But I'm not opposed to it. Why would you be opposed to my belief system?
I guess it's because most people around me who are like religious, they seem far more happier than people who aren't religious. And I noticed that a lot of yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Can I tell you about the studies on this? About the studies on actual happiness and religion versus secularism?
Well, yeah. I know there's two. I know there's two types of Christians. There's the self-ID Christians, and then there's the people who actually practice. They go to church and do the tithes and all that stuff. Last time I read, I don't know if it's new, but last time I read, the ones who are practicing Christians, they have far higher happiness rates than the secularists. And the secularists seem to have higher happiness rates than the people who self-ID as Christians.
Let me take it one step further for you, Andrew. What that research shows when you get into it, is that the Christians who go to church and are involved in their community are happier than people who are self-identified Christian but don't participate, and secularists or atheists who don't participate. But secularists and atheists who participate in some kind of community, who have a positive identity around their humanism or atheism or whatever it is, and part of a group that shares it with them, they're just as happy as those Christians who go to church. So it's not believing in God or not believing in God that makes you happy or unhappy. It's being around people. It is having friends. It is having a group of people who help you find your way through life. And that's consistent with everything we've seen in the research on happiness, everything we've seen on the research on mental well-being. The less lonely you are, the more positive relationships you have. That's what makes you happy. And that's why I do my job, right? Because I want people
but it's the
who aren't
Christianity
Christian,
that brought
aren't
them
Jewish,
together.
aren't Muslim to have that same kind of community.
Yeah, but it's the Christianity that brings these communities together in the first place. They wouldn't come together. That's why you see Christians with Christians, Muslims with Muslims. Like it's the God. The God has to be there. It's the God being there that brings them together in the first place.
Sure, but
Like,
you could have that same kind of community without God, right? Like what about Buddhists?
Some Buddhists don't they have gods?
Buddha's not a god.
No, I'm saying like the fat 6-arm thing. That's a Buddha statue. They don't worship that. I don't know nothing about
that. That's a Hindu god, bud.
Oh, that's a Hindu. Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Buddha statue.
You're talking about or Vishnu or something. But what I'm saying, because like I agree with you that the belief in God is part of what brings Christian communities together. Although I would say there are plenty of people who participate in religious communities who don't believe in God, right? Like I think of a lot of my friends who are Jewish and who participate in Jewish life and Jewish ritual, but like don't believe in God at all. And that's like often true of a lot of Jews, right? But I don't think it is the belief in God. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that the belief in God is necessary to create a community that makes you happy. And I think that's borne out by the fact that the research shows that secular people who participate in secular communities are just as happy as religious people who regularly participate in religious communities. It's the community, not the belief in God, that makes you happy.
Then why do secularists? Yeah, but if you take away the belief in God, the community falls apart.
Not necessarily.
Well,
it will fall apart.
Maybe if that's what you came together based on, and that's kind of what I'm saying, right? Like part of why Christianity doesn't work for me is like belief in God is a fragile thing, right? It's like why would I build a belief system that is based on something I don't know is true? Humanism is based on something I can see right in front of me. It's other people.
Yeah, but plus Christianity gives people hope. I mean, when
humanism gives me lots of hope, Andrew.
No, I'm saying like most people on the planet, if you just tell them what happens when I die, oh, you just go on the ground, you cease to exist, that's it. That's not appealing to people. That makes people feel less hopeful.
I would argue in contradiction, Andrew, that for me, I'm not necessarily saying that my experience represents everyone, but I think there's lots of people who share my experience, which is that I find all I know for a fact that I'm going to have is this life, the one that we're both living right now, right? And I find that not knowing whether or not it's finite, and in my opinion, it seems like it's probably finite, like this is probably all we're going to get, that to me makes this way more valuable. If anything, sometimes it makes me like feel like I have to get in all of the exciting, hopeful, and enriching experiences that I need to like learn all the things I can because this is all that I know I have. And that is exciting to me, at least, and inspiring that like I make sure that I live this life as good as I possibly can because it's the only one that I know that I'm going to get. I think there's a lot of people who knowing that, the Bible even says this life is like dirty rags. A lot of people who view this life as just a stepping stone to the afterlife and that they don't actually value the one that they're in right now nearly as much as the one that they're told they're going to get.
So, okay,
Andrew,
let's say if we was,
Andrew, I just want to say, like, if your Christianity gives you hope, I am sincerely glad about that, man. Like, I'm glad we all need hope, and if that's what gives you hope, I'm glad. Just like humanism is what gives Arden hope, and like. The thing for me is like I don't at all think the story that humanism tells about death is when you're dead you just go in the ground and that's it, right? Like to me the thing about humanism that's important and the way I think about death is like when I die, everything that I have poured into the world, everything I've created, every person I've influenced, every person I've helped, right? Like that becomes my legacy. Right? Like, I am the living embodiment of my parents' and grandparents' legacies. The love, everything I do is carrying on the love they poured into me, and that is a fraction of the love that their parents and grandparents poured into them, right? Like every person who mentored me, supported me, like I and everyone else they helped are the way that they live when they're gone. And that, like, you don't have to
So,
believe that, but that is what gives me hope.
yeah.
And it's definitely different than, oh, I just die and I go on the ground and I'm nothing. No, everything I touched in this world that continues to live is then brings my spirit on. Like, that's how I think about it, and that is
Yeah.
profoundly hopeful to me because it's what inspires me to go out and do good in the world because I want there to be more good that lives on in the world when I die.
So what sounds more appealing, do you think, to most people? What you said, or, when you die, you're going to see all your loved ones, you're going to see the Lord, you're going to see all your loved ones again, all your friends in heaven. That sounds more appealing to people. That's why
But you know what also sounds more appealing, Andrew? That I have $1 billion in my bank account and I don't. So it's like, I personally prefer something that I know is real, that I can cling on to, that actually motivates me, rather than a promise that I have no reason to believe. If you told me that when I hit 60, I'm gonna get $1 billion check, you can't prove it, but I promise you, when you turn 60, you're gonna hit that $1 billion check. That's not gonna change how I live my life because I have no reason to believe that's true. I don't see any examples of that happening to anyone else I know. And so I'm not gonna bank my whole life on this promise that I don't really know. Like, I'd much rather bank it on what we do know, which are all those things that Fish just talked about. But I want to do
100%.
Yeah, one last.
Like,
sorry, no, go ahead, jump in.
I was just gonna say, like, there's this concept called expectancy value theory, right? Like, and we're talking here because Andrew, I want to bring it back to like what I heard from you at the beginning was what you value about Christianity is that it motivates us to do good and it motivates us to hope, and you feel like atheism or humanism doesn't. And I just don't think that's true, right? That like you can draw a binary around those things that way. And one of the things about expectancy value theory is like my motivation to hope or to be a good person is based on the value I have of the reward plus the degree to which I expect the reward is going to happen. I can't, like, honestly, I went through a period in my teens where I went to church and I thought about being a Christian. I really tried because, like, my dad was 65 when I was born. He was really elderly when I was a kid. He had some health scares. I wanted to cling on to something that told me a story that I could be with him forever because I loved him and I was going to miss him. I miss him now. But like I couldn't get it to work, right? Like I didn't actually expect that it would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't matter how much I valued that outcome of getting to be with my dad forever. If you don't believe it's going to happen to you, and some people just don't believe, then it's not going to be motivating for you. And dude, if that belief is working for you, great. I'm not going to tell you not to believe it. But like recognize that there are so many other people for whom what they need to do is expect something they know to be true, which is that our actions right now affect people beyond us, that's what they want to pour their hope into, and that can make people moral as well. I want you to see that and respect that.
Yeah, I want to give one last thought, and then Andrew, I want to hear your thoughts. We'll probably wrap up the conversation there. I think, and this is kind of just building off what Fish said. Actually, I think you pretty much kind of took it the direction I was going to say, which is that, I think there's nothing inherent to theism or atheism that is responsible for morality or hope or goodness. Those are complex things that come out from, it would be a whole lecture series we could go into where all those things come from, but a lot of it has to do with community. We're a social species, we're social creatures. And so I think like Fish said, if you get hope from Christianity, cool. I think, but you called in here to say that you think atheism makes people immoral. And so I hope that you can walk away from this with the knowledge that while you might find hope and morality in your view from Christianity, that atheism is not making people immoral, because there's nothing inherent to don't get me wrong. There are immoral atheists. You're not going to find me fighting you on that one. There are lots of them who squander hope and goodness too. But it's nothing inherent to atheism or theism that provides those things. Those have to do with community and, the quality of life that you're getting amongst a bajillion other factors, I'm sure.
Okay. I understand. Like the last thing I want to say before y'all go I mean, I guess I'm speaking from, my own personal experience. Most of the atheists that maybe I need to talk to more atheists, but most of the atheists that I encounter or that I've seen either debate on here or whatever, they were just really mean, nasty people. And not saying that they all are, but they were, they curse at you a lot. I know Matt Dillahunty, he just curses, and they're just not respectful. And a lot of them are just angry all the time.
Andrew, to be fair, the first time you called into this show, you called one of our hosts a whore because she had sex with more than 5 people by your account. So
no, I didn't call her.
You did, actually. I just was working on the clip. So I'm just saying, like, listen, do atheists get mad sometimes? Yeah. But is it justified sometimes? Also, yeah. Listen, man, you've been calling a lot, and I've actually seen you kind of take on new things and adjust. And so I'm actually really hopeful for the continued conversations you have with us. But I also want to remind you that the engagements you're getting with atheists here, you are on a network where we're talking to you in front of, like, I don't think there's thousands of people here right now, but often there's thousands of people, 682 people right now. That's still a lot of people. Like, this isn't the same kind of conversation that you would have with an atheist if you were just hanging out, getting coffee with a friend, or if you were engaging at a, UU church on Sunday or something like that while you guys are doing some sort of community activism. So to what extent you might think that atheists are angry because Matt Dillahunty called you some names because you called our host some other names.
Awful. That is an awful
Andrew, I think you deserved it, that call. If I'm being straight up with you, I think you really earned it on at least that call. So I invite you to call back, like, Doug, and to continue the conversation.
I'll just say, like, if you're going and calling people you don't know a whore, how moral is your Christianity making you, really?
No, I never called her that word.
You actually did, though. She specifically asked because she said, how many people would it take? And you said 5 or more. And she had said, or I think she might have resisted saying exactly how many she had. But she was like, oh, so that means, like, me and other people who've had, like, most people are whores then. And you were like, yep. So you did. I mean, you were just engaging in the intellectual conversation, but you did definitely do that. So I think the names you got were justified. But we are going to wrap it up here, Andrew.
No,
Thank you for calling.
Okay.
Listen, I get you. We don't need to do an endless back and forth with clarifying. Thanks for calling, and we'll talk to you next time, all right?
I just learned I'm a whore.
Right. So I don't want to tell you what my body count is. Andrew I'll have to make up a whole new term for me. Can I ask you to actually talk to the audience while I put a 1 up? I've been kind of sick today, and I've had to drink so much water, and I really have to use the restroom.
Go. Do what you got to do.
Do whatever you want to do. Preach to our audience. Tell them what you want to tell them. They're all yours.
Oh my gosh, I get to preach to the choir. This is Hi the Line. It's good to be here. It's good to see you. I can't see what you guys are putting in the chat, so I'm just going to guess at what you want to hear about. Let me talk a little bit about the AHA and some of the stuff we're doing. Here's a good piece of good news that happened this week at the AHA, because I feel like everyone needs good news. So in 2018, at the AHA's offices, Jared Huffman, who's the only atheist in Congress at the time, and Jamie Raskin, who describes himself as both Jewish and a humanist, and 2 other members of Congress who were religious but who believed in the separation of church and state, came together with my predecessor, Roy Speckhart, and they decided they were going to create a congressional caucus called the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. And the idea was it would be for people of any faith or no faith at all to support real religious freedom in the United States and to support policy that's based on science, not religion. And so that was just like a little group in Congress. And, caucuses like the Freedom Caucus or the Progressive Caucus can end up having a lot of power because they are the place, other than like from the Speaker of the House, where members get their information. And one of the cool things that's been happening this year is the Free Thought Caucus has become one of the fastest growing caucuses in Congress. We've got members from all over the country joining and saying, like, yeah, this matters to me. Like, we need real freedom of religion and separation of church and state in this country. So it's gone from being this tiny little thing with 4 members to being almost as big as the Freedom Caucus, which you guys have probably heard of because they control a lot of the policy on the far right. And this week we got our newest member, Congresswoman Sarah McBride from Delaware, the first trans member of Congress, joined the Congressional Free Thought Caucus. It's now up to 32 members. And this is people who, in an environment, right, in a country dominated by Christian hegemony, are putting their careers on the line to say, we care about church-state separation. Okay, Arden, that was me filling. I was talking about good things happening in Congress for once.
I got here just in time to hear Sarah McBride join the Free Thought Caucus, that's super exciting.
Big win.
Awesome. All right, let's see what kind of callers we've got left. Probably going to close the lines here in the next few minutes. Hopefully calls will take us to about 8 o'clock, and then we'll read your super chats. Any super chat of $5 or more, we will read out live. Also, I want to remind you guys that you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/calltheline. You get access to ad-free episodes of The Line Has a Podcast. You get our monthly Zoom Q&A sessions, which also, there might be one tomorrow. Our schedule got really messed up. We were supposed to have the SSA fundraiser next week. And due to kind of the whole framing of the SSA and how we pitched that, we're deciding to put it off to next, probably October, just to be sensitive to current events. Patreon, get access to early ad-free episodes of The Line Has a Podcast, the monthly Q&A session, our new Line Con Online Live, a line production, whatever silly name Jimmy came up with, where we do lectures from 3 of our hosts every month. So you can go subscribe there for that. Those will start to come out live or on like the channel as videos in a couple months. But for now, they're only accessed by patrons. So until then, let's see. We have 2 callers. Tell me which one you think sounds the most exciting. They're both theists. One says, I think atheism has a charisma problem, specifically that it is largely what gets misconstrued as being immoral. And the other says, does God exist? Meaning if you take consciousness as fundamental, there's no way he cannot exist.
Interesting. I'd be good with either, but I kind of think caller number 1 and I are going to agree on a lot of stuff. And
Okay.
Caller number 2, I don't know where that's going. I'm kind of curious about it.
All right. Yeah. Let's talk to you then. Kelly, him in Indiana is a theist and says, does God exist? Meaning if you take consciousness as fundamental, there's no way he cannot exist. So Kelly, you're live with Arden and Fish on the line. What's going on?
Hi, how's it going? So my premise really is, so I'm not married to my ideals. It's just I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I kind of need see where you guys think about it. So kind of panpsychism, consciousness is fundamental, meaning there's materialism, dualism, and panpsychism or consciousness. Now I know through experience that consciousness has to be fundamental only through my eyes. Like Einstein says, space and time is married, and those are fundamental. But those can only be viewed through consciousness, through a conscious experience. Through anybody, gravity, time, speed, all of that is viewed through a consciousness experience. So if you take that, then you can disengage what reality really is, meaning, like if I take space, if there was nothing at all at the very beginning, there was nothing, and then a consciousness came into existence, whatever that is, I call it the universe because I look as above, so below, or as they say with everything we know about humans. And throughout human history, there are certain patterns that pops up all around the world meaning God was a thing and then he split, and from China to Hinduism, Africa, China, even Native Americans, and I don't even know what Alaskans' religion is, but I'm sure something similar, where there's a lot of patterns you see, and through conscious experience, we kind of know that God has to be here, or has to be the actual universe, the physical manifestation of the universe, because nothing can exist without possibility. And like if I wave my hand through the air, it's a bunch of zeros. Kind of thinking in terms of computing, zeros and ones. There's nothing in front of me, all zeros. But as soon as I wave my hand, it's all ones, which was undetermined a second ago. It was straight zero. And then as soon as I place my hand there, there's matter there, there's something there, one. So if the universe is all bit by bit or information, zeros and ones, and the fact that we exist means that there has to be a fundamental consciousness before that.
So, Kelly, you just said a lot of beautiful stuff about the complexity of the universe and the infiniteness nature of possibility, and the fact that like things are made real by the fact that we experience them and can comprehend them. None of that to me seems to require a god, right? Like I think of consciousness, and so I'm about to ask you a question because I think we might be defining terms differently, right? Like I think about consciousness as right, like humans experiencing and processing things, right? My consciousness is my awareness as a human, in my view, that I'm alive, that things are happening around me. It's my processing of and reaction to those things. And in my view, that is a function of my brain, which is a function of my biology, right? Like, and none of those things require a god by nature. So I'm wondering, like, what do you mean by consciousness? Because maybe you and I are talking about two different things.
Okay, so I mean by consciousness is just meaning what you are. So like if you say, if I push you, materialism dictates that I'm gonna get a opposite force pushing me back, or you might go forward. Now, if you get angry, you could choose to act, not act. I'm sorry, you just asked me what consciousness is. I'm so sorry. So I'm just gonna say consciousness is pretty much a flashlight. If you open your eyes, it's a flashlight. You can place value on what you see with those eyes, whatever that value is, but the force behind that light is the consciousness. There's a mind.
So consciousness is my own subjective processing of the things I experience in the world, right? Like consciousness is me making sense of the shit that's happening around me. Okay, I agree and I think consciousness is what makes people special, right? Like I don't believe in an immortal soul. I don't believe in like intelligent design and like that my body was created for some purpose. I think that my consciousness is what makes me human and what makes humans like worth fighting for. But I don't think there's any supernatural element to that consciousness. And like obviously reasonable people can disagree on this, but I don't think the fact that I can perceive and think things with my brain necessarily means there's a God. Like how does it follow that because I have consciousness, God has to exist?
Okay, because it has to exist, because if we use it, this is only, I would say it only works when science finds out that mental or consciousness is fundamental. So instead of Big Bang everything, so there has to be a tie-in for materialism, for what we see. And now we know that mental has, or consciousness has, an effect on material reality, like placebo effect, meditation, heartbeat, like at least bodily, we know that it has an effect. So to an extent that I don't think humans has either evolved enough or has trained enough on the consciousness level to reach what you need, because I would say the reason I would say there is God, because you can't, if there's zero and there's one, if there's a big bang happened, boom, zero, all molecules scattered, nothing, everything. There was zero, a possibility of zero. But if there was just one, if there's one, then that consciousness, that one molecule has the ability, like that one molecule has the ability to create everything. If that makes sense of a God. I mean, on a level.
So Kelly, are you saying whatever immediately existed after the Big Bang, that's God? Because I agree, there had like whatever existed immediately after the Big Bang, like that was a thing. There was something that happened after the Big Bang. That doesn't fit with like any notion of God that I understand in our culture. But like, if you want to call that thing God, like I guess.
So yeah, you could call that God, because as long as there's a consciousness that a field for things to react to, whatever that field is react to, which I would call the universe, is the field that we all observably see after Big Bang. That field that we see is God. And so when they talk about, like, I heard you talking about the previous caller, and y'all was talking about morality and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, in my view, God doesn't have a say in that because, again, I'm not a Christian, but through culture, I can say things like, when God kicked Adam and Eve out, he said straight up, like, oh, y'all got knowledge, y'all know better than me, so I'm gonna be out. Meaning God has nothing to do with morality, nothing to do with that. It just he is his first word, I am. Meaning whatever the universe is here, we're here. Like same as your consciousness. You can put value on your name or the people around you or whatever, but at the core, you are. If you know what I mean. I'm sorry. I'm kind of nervous.
No. Don't apologize, man. I think this is interesting. I'm not entirely following you, but I'm not upset about it. Like you're making us think. I don't know, Arden. I got more questions. Do you have questions?
I guess I'm similarly struggling a little bit to follow. I've heard things similar to this before, so I'm kind of trying to rely on like that schema of things that I've heard to piece together my understanding of what you're saying. I guess like so I wrote down a lot of the things you said here, and there's a lot that I'm not really sure I completely understand how you're using these terms. It feels to me sometimes like I'll call it quantum woo, which is kind of this notion that there are these sort of really big terms and concepts in physics like quantum physics or like string theory or like like you mentioned like the dimensions of time and space and how they're like fundamental or something like that, and we're kind of there's an appeal to casting those in the role of God, and I think that's kind of what Fish is touching on, where it feels like you're just kind of it doesn't really feel like you're believing in a God to me as much as it feels like you're looking at reality, the world that exists, or the cosmos, I suppose, that exists, and calling it God. And I guess do you think that's accurate, or do you think there's more to it than just calling the cosmos God?
I am okay. So there's like humanity through direct experience. To answer your question, I believe that's part of the answer, because as us, we have a physical experience and a conscious mental experience. So God could be the exact same way as the universe is the material, and then after the great beyond, there's another experience, a more fundamental, closer to experience.
So,
and
if I can just,
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I guess part of my thing that makes this hard for me to get, and this may just be a personal thing, is that to me, I don't really see a difference between the physical and the conscious experience. As far as I can tell, the conscious experience is just the kind of what we call the complex interactions of neurons and chemicals firing in your brain. And so I don't, for me, I'm not really separating that from the physical reality. Like your brain states are physical, and, while how you experience them is going to, differ from person to person, and how you interpret them, it's still a physical thing that's happening. So I guess I'm still struggling to kind of understand.
Okay, so you want where the magic comes from. Okay, so in my view, you're right. Thinking is a material expression. It is a material process, but also there's a part of that's even more fundamental consciousness, like dreaming. Is that a material process? Probably, maybe not. There is OBEs, there's placebos, there's so many phenomena that most people just look past, like, oh, that might be true, maybe not true, but nobody takes the time to dig into it. I mean, there are I forgot what the name. I started para, but there are people that explore those things, but in general, it comes off as statistical noise, and I don't know why. Like out of body experiences and altered states that we know exist.
Go ahead, Fish.
And I was going to say, Kelly, like, I think, like, all of these things you're describing, right? Like, we don't know everything there is to know about the human mind. we don't know everything there is to know about the universe, right? I think like one of the things that as a humanist I think is really cool is that like there are so many layers to the way our minds work that we haven't discovered yet. That's one of the things that makes humans special, right? Like there are things I can't see or touch or fully understand, but that I know are present, like love. But like I don't I guess my question is, what is the utility of referring to those things as God when there's already a concept of God in our culture that is a fundamentally different thing that neither of us are talking about, right? Like, why would we, why use the word God to
Why would
describe
you
that? Like, could we
to
use it? Because
describe
I don't think like I don't think that majesty and mystery in the world or in our minds is not a real thing. I'm not trying to imply that. But when you come in and talk about God in a world, in a country where I think like most people, they hear God and they think about the Judeo-Christian God, like why I'm not trying to tell you have to use another word, but like my question is why not use another word?
I would say because it's the most understandable when it means it permeates everything. When it means, like, if I say the universe is material manifestation of God, that means the fact that I exist, if God is one giant number one and outside of God is everything is zero, that means I only can exist because my conscious experience meaning I'm here. If everything outside of the universe is zero and I'm a conscious agent, that means one thing is possible. That means if one is
So
only
we're
possible, that
going
means
back to like a Descartesian thing, right? Like I think therefore I am, right? It is like my consciousness is what makes me real, and consciousness of things in the world is what makes them real.
oh
Like
no.
I'm just
I
saying a
am
lot
because
of
I
people
am.
don't use the word God to describe that.
This is like the monad. Chat's gonna lose their minds. Is that kind of what you're pulling from?
No. So me, I just study a lot of religions and try to find patterns, like integrate everything into one giant thing. Because if that's true, like humans are all connected. I don't know if y'all agree with that or that sentiment, but we are. Like, every time a record is broken, it's not possible until some first person does it. Or everything around us, it comes from an abstract make-believe world that we bring into reality, kind of like the human superpower. We construct reality based off of abstract notions that we just pull wherever it comes from, or insights. Insights, we don't know. It could just be patterns that the brain recognizes extra fast, but it only happens when you're not thinking about it, kind of thing.
I mean, let me see if I'm picking up what you're putting down. If we're talking about the same thing or talking about different things, right? I believe in, and there's some great research that like Dr. Kristen Neff at UT Austin does in the idea of common humanity, right? The idea that like the experiences that I have as a human being, experiences of love or failure or fear, are actually pretty universal human experiences that someone who I may never meet, someone who lives in completely different circumstances from me, that people will have. And that helps me understand them and feel connected to them. And actually, when we have awareness of our common humanity, that makes us more empathetic towards people. It makes us more self-confident. It makes us more forgiving of our own faults and failings because we recognize
Kind of
that
like
we're not
raising your
alone,
consciousness.
that there's something that connects us with even to people who we may never meet, because there are things that are common to the human experience because we're the same species. Like it,
That's right.
and I just don't think of that. And like to me, that's a thing we're already studying and learning more about as we go. It's not a thing we can touch, but it's a thing that's real that I don't feel the need to have a metaphor for. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about a different thing?
I mean, we don't have to have a metaphor because we know it's real. Like, yeah, we are studying, but we also know it's real. But so, in understanding that it's real, we can transmute that to the earth around us or what we see around us.
Well, can I?
And
I'm sorry to interrupt,
because,
Kelly. I just
yeah,
so you're saying we know it's real, and I think what I really want to hone in on, just so I can pull this conversation together from my own understanding. When you say we know it's real, like I would agree that with everything Fisher said that we share experiences and all of that, but like I wouldn't say that there is like a sort of metaphysical thread that's tying us all together, right? Like that is just the product of being species with a species with a common ancestor.
I guess I would just have to I would have to say to that we don't know in a metaphysical sense. My answer with that would be like just look at all commonalities through humans, or even our language similarities. Like if you're feeling sad, everybody says you're feeling down, like a lower state or down. Other cultures say you're lifting up.
Right.
It's so many commonalities in human nature and human experience that we share that it's too big to be a cool.
But can I blow your mind with something to kind of hit home why I think that is really more of an effect of us being a species that evolved from a common ancestor? Because when you look at babies, right, there's a lot of gestures they do that we just know. Nobody has to teach the baby that if you look up at your mom, stretch out your hands and do grabby hands, that means the baby wants to get picked up, right? Well, weirdly, like Erica Gutsa-Gibbon, who works on this channel, I forget the exact number. It was something like 80 to 90% of the hand gestures that human babies do are also seen in our closest relatives, like gorillas, bonobos, and other apes. They all do the exact same behaviors, right? So are they, and you know, that could work in your framework, but that would mean that in your framework, we're also all connected to bonobos?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So to build even off of that, so category that humans, category bonobos. Now, commonalities between them two are, there's so many, but I would just say the big one, if I'm just trying to get to a big one, you could say if love is fundamental, because everything in nature or everything that we see around us has to be birthed or to an extent or nurtured, either be it plants or be it humans or bonobos. Everything starts with a seed being nurtured. So love has to be the fundamental force of everything for it to exist. So if you take that and then translate that emotion, what does that mean to humans? And that human, that gives you past survival. You will kill yourself over somebody you love, or, you know, put yourself in harm's way for somebody you love, which is not, if it was a material, you wouldn't do that. If it was a material universe, there'd be no cause for that.
I think, well, I would disagree. I think there are lots of causes and reasons for things like that in a completely material world. And if I can, it feels to me, Kelly, like you have like a deep resistance to, like to you, it feels like the commonalities just seem to be so universal in such a way. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to kind of like steelman this back to you. So please tell me if you think I'm not representing it right. But it seems like you kind of think that like these commonalities are so universal and stretch so far past even our own species that the explanation can't be simply a mere common ancestry, and that it is something more metaphysical that we can't directly observe. Like, what is your objection to, if that is the case, to that? Because like all of those things you said fit perfectly in my materialist worldview. Like none of those things conflict in my worldview.
Right, and I'm not saying as God as a creator, my God and my thought process is evolution still could be true, not because I'm not a Christian, but evolution could be true. But if God is a universe, then in that reference, so I'm gonna just get to the point. Do you want me to get you to a point where I could like to actually explain what God is?
Yes, I keep saying that'd be great.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. All right. So here we go.
No, it's cool. It's cool. This is fun, man. Don't apologize.
Yeah. Okay. When you look at yourself, you have a physical form and you have a abstract mental consciousness mind form, right? That seems to be the case for at least most of all humans. Now, the universe, I would say, through all esoteric religions, as above, so below, is one of the biggest things. And Christian, but I don't know if I'm pretty sure there's other sayings like it, but in Christian theology.
Hold on. I'm going to pause you, Kelly, because you had me for the first part. I have a physical form, and then I have mental thoughts going on in my head, right? That these aren't things I can touch, like I can touch my arm. I don't know where we're going with as above, so below. I'm not challenging you. I'm just saying you've lost me there. I don't fully get where we are now.
When I mean, so if okay, all right. So check this. If you have a thought, I just seen this on thing and they fired him for it, but he was just telling the truth. You have evil thoughts lead to evil words lead to evil actions. So that's an abstract. So as below, as above. So in your head, in this abstract notion of space somewhere in your head, you have an evil thoughts, which it speaks evil thoughts, which brings in material form evil actions, right? And that's how our universe works.
So I just want to make sure, because we're tracking each other pretty close, Kelly. So I want to make sure it's okay if we diverge. I want to make sure we're on the same page. I agree that what we think, our mental processes, they influence what we do. I do think that there's you can have thoughts that you inhibit, right? Your thoughts don't become your behavior. There's a layer between your immediate thoughts and your behavior, right? Like we consciously mediate what we do. Do we agree about that?
Yes, sir. But just FYI, you have to train it consciousness is developmental. Same as the political system, same as society. It's all developmental. It starts at me, myself, then it grows to me and my family, then me and my tribe, and then me and my nation, or me and my country, and so far and so forth. But each way up, you're getting closer. It seems like you're going closer to more and more of oneness with everything, right? In the same category as consciousness grows.
I mean, okay, so in a sense, sure. It feels like what's the name for those Russian they're called Russian nesting dolls. It feels like it kind of feels like you're saying that as we get further up to the bigger size nesting doll, eventually there's no more nesting dolls and there's just everything has been contained in the one big nesting doll. Is that in the ballpark?
Yep, exactly. That's the ballpark. That's
okay.
the ballpark. And then,
here's a question I have for you, Kelly. Yes, here's a question I have about this, right? I think right now we know way more than we did 50 years ago about all these things, right? About mental processes, about how our thoughts influence our actions, about how our thoughts are similar or different to other humans, about how about Christian Neff's idea of common humanity, right? Do you think that there's anything going on here that could not eventually be understood through science? I'm not saying that we understand it all fully and completely now, but do you think that by its very nature there's something going on here that could never be scientifically explained?
No. I think eventually science will get to the point where science has to change. Science has to change.
I kind of, I'm not going to tell you what you are or aren't, man. All I'm saying is you call yourself a theist. I'm an atheist, but what I'm kind of hearing from you is that all of these things that you're saying are beautiful and magical in the world and that you call God are the same things that I see that are beautiful, that make me a humanist. And we both agree it can be explained by science. It's not it might feel magical in the sense that our common humanity or feelings of love are a beautiful thing, but it's not like it's not like there's a person in the sky pulling puppet strings making them happen. So what makes you call yourself a theist?
I call myself a theist because pretty much zeros and ones. If zero is non-existence and one is existence, then point proven, I exist. So therefore, there has to be a force that created me outside of my parents. There has to be a force that created the earth, which could be Big Bang. But even in that experience, I believe if consciousness is fundamental, something had to cause that material explosion that happened. It has to be a form of intelligence or mind.
So this is kind of seems like it's fundamentally some form of contingency argument. And so I guess that would lead me to ask
can you explain contingency, please?
Sorry. It's just basically the notion that everything has a cause and effect, and eventually you're going to always get back to one fundamental cause. They used to call it the unmoved mover, the first domino that got kicked over, and every other domino before that, you could see there was a domino in front of it that knocked that one over. But this first one was the one that we don't necessarily know how or why it got kicked over. So I think
it's like a wall. It's a wall that we can't get past. You can see the wall, but we just can't get past it. No matter, as humans, no matter what we try, we can't get past whatever this wall is blocking. See it.
So So I guess my question is I am comfortable acknowledging that under certain forms of this contingency argument, you you look back and eventually you kind of just have to throw your hands up and say, we don't know. It's impossible for us to go before the Big Bang, because the concept of before the Big Bang doesn't even really make sense, because time started at the Big Bang. So like, you can't really have before time. It's just kind of incoherent, right? So I think my question is like, why do you feel the need to ascribe some sort of understanding? Like, what's the aversion to saying? Because like, I think the fact is, like, from like a scientific perspective, we just don't know. We don't know why the expansion of the universe started. We don't know. Like, there's no way for us to investigate it in any capacity. So to me, the way I handle that is say, I don't know. I hope it'd be cool if science found out one day, because as humans, I think we like knowing answers and we like not having to be in the I don't know state. But it is just the fact that we are in an I don't know state. So like, do you have an objection to just saying I don't know? Or like why do you have to prescribe some kind of answer?
Oh, easily. Because we have billions of ancestors that went through the same thing we haven't, and they had their entire lives through all of human history to think about the same thing I'm thinking about now. So it'd be foolish of me to not take what they said in 100% honorable and respectable ways. Now, I don't have to believe it, but I could take it and find commonalities through all the humans on Earth to come to my own conclusion, which is what they tell you to do. And secondly, the material form, I know it doesn't explain everything, because like half of the planet believes in reincarnation. I don't know why we don't hear, but it's obviously an answer. There's been studies, there's been papers. There's a guy in Massachusetts that got like a big library full of reincarnation stories. Even in, you know, Christianity, what they say, alpha and omega, beginning and end. So everything is cyclical. It's a pattern. And my only objection to not saying it, putting a label on it is wrong, but also I have to use something in common language to express it, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess here's my question, Kelly. I guess where you and I would diverge for sure is the idea that like, okay, well, if you know, ancestors thought this across cultures, it must be right? Like there's, as an example, right, there are so many different ancient cultures that have a myth about how the sun got in the sky, and it's almost always some variation of, well, a god put it there, right? And like, it's a different god in every culture, but they're like, there was a dude and he put the sun in the sky. It wasn't there, and then he took it and he put it there. And I just like, and that's common. That's a foundational myth across so many ancient cultures. But like, you and I know that some guy didn't just come and put the sun in the sky, even though it was something that is a common story that emerged across lots of, like, we know that that's kind of baloney, right? So like, what, I guess, where do we draw the line between like a bunch of people came up with stories we know aren't true? That doesn't make it so.
That is true. I think what makes the difference for me is not in the physical interpretation of the stories. 1 second, please. I'm sorry. I started my car and I don't want to get switched over.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm here. I was saying it's not the actual literal versions of the stories that I believe, but it's the overarching pattern that you see. So like when you say sun god, I could say, yeah, but the sun is God-like. It brings life to everything on the planet, right? And why do we not?
Sure.
Why would we? Yeah, why wouldn't we like it? So the fact that it gives life is God-like in its own right. Like, why do we have to diminish that power as a gift, and take that because we understand it doesn't mean you have to take the mystic out of it.
I don't think it's diminishing. But sorry, Fish, you're ready to jump in there.
No. Go for it, and then I got a thought.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, and we'll probably start to wrap up this call, Kelly. But it's been a good conversation. I don't really think it diminishes it to say that like we know better now, or we know more facts about reality now that lead us to different conclusions than our ancestors who had a lot less information than we did. I think if they were in our time, if we could transport them all to the present and they had access to the information we had, I'm sure many of them would be resistant and hold on to what they used to believe. But I think a lot of them would also probably be like, wow, that's so cool. I wish we had known that back in my day. I'm so glad we know that. Now, what does that mean about all these other things I thought? Like, humans are naturally curious, and so sure. But I don't think it's disrespectful to acknowledge that we know things now that they didn't know, and that leads us to very different conclusions about the nature of reality.
Well, and I'd add on, like, I think one of the things that's coming up here, and it's a thing where I have to admit, like, it gets at me a little bit, is like this idea that, because I agree with you, Kelly, right? Like, there's like, I think it makes sense to have a sense of wonder and gratitude towards the world we live in. Because, like, holy shit, right? Like, the fact that we are the only
Everything.
beings in the known universe that live on a planet powered by a star that allows us to live is like, that's a cool thing. And like, we should be grateful for the fact that like we are alive and that like we have all these things. Like, the sun is awesome, right? Like, but I don't if having like a god myth helps people make sense of that, like, and live with gratitude, which is a good thing, good for them. But I kind of, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I resent the implication that because I don't have a god myth, that then I fundamentally can't have that same kind of gratitude, that same kind of wonder, that same kind of appreciation for the like incredible awesomeness that is life in the world that we live in, right? I think that's kind of the point of humanism, the idea that we can find joy and meaning and purpose and power in the world we have now without needing to make up a story. And if you do, that's cool. But I don't want it to. I don't want the story to be that I don't have that either.
I guess I would say to that, it's not that I'm not trying to say that you can't or won't. I'm just saying it's a consciousness thing. Like, with in cultural terms, we use the word intelligence as catch-all. These people are stupid, or they can't see what this or that is. It's darkness that needs to be illuminated. Like, you can say, like, Buddhists have you don't need therapy because all they say is, if when it comes to human interaction, division is the problem. I guess anyway, my follow-up question: do you guys believe in phenomena, any kind of supernatural phenomena? And do you guys have you looked into it? And secondly, like, my thing is what I just said about your consciousness level. It takes your consciousness to raise to a certain level to be able to gain the gratitude and be able to see certain things that you wasn't illuminated on before.
I would say that I don't currently hold any belief in any supernatural thing, but I will say, you mentioned earlier, like, OBEs. I used to be a big believer in OBEs. After I came out of Christianity when I was like 15, 16, I watched Spirit Science all the time, constantly in my bedroom. I was meditating and I genuinely believed that I was having out of body experiences when I was meditating. And I like hours of my life as a teenager meditating. I was clearly neurodivergent and did not know it yet, and that's okay. But I was really interested, and I had a lot of experiences that I can understand how I would frame them now, but at the time, to me, I was like, wow, that was a mind-blowing experience that must have been mystical. And I'll tell you that now, and I've also since done a lot of psychedelics that elicit similar connections of feelings in the universe. And I still, to this day, as far as I can tell, all of that stuff was really just a combination of brain experiences. I don't really find any reason to attribute a supernatural. I haven't seen evidence that would lead me to think that supernatural is the causing factor here.
Yeah,
even though
for my part,
like, even though your mind is abstract and it comes from a nowhere place, you have these thoughts, feelings, and emotions that's common to everything. And the fact that emotions, they could be survival, they are survival mechanisms due to a material process. But the fact of identifying and thinking that, never mind, I lost the thought. It was.
It's
got
okay.
Conclusion there.
I kind of got what you were saying. I guess I kind of reject the notion that my mind comes from a nowhere place. Like, I think that it's just fundamentally all of these things are physical.
Even space, even like, so when they zoom in space to the very degree that we know of right now, they say virtual particles. Now, I know that's just shorthand for mathematical particles that they can't see yet, but apparently those particles pop in and out of existence. Where do they go? Where do they come from? We don't know, but we know space is a physical abstract.
I don't know how to explain space, but to be honest, I'm not a physicist, and I've known several physicists, and all the physicists that I know are also materialists. So, you know, methodological naturalist is probably a more accurate way to say that. Meaning, like, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that material is all that exists, but I'm saying it's all that I can see and all that it seems like we can observe as far as I can tell. But sorry, Fish, you've been itching to jump in. Get in there.
And I think that's what's cool about humanism, right? Like the idea that we ourselves can understand the mysteries of the world through our incredible brains and through the scientific method and working together, right? Like, we don't need some unseen force to write the mysteries of the universe down on stone tablets for us. We can go uncover them and make sense, and then figure out how to use them to make life better for us, right? Like, to me, that's what's amazing about the natural world and human potential. Again, one of the things that makes me proud to be a humanist. I think, Kelly, what I hear in you is like that openness and that curiosity. Like, we should be open to things that we don't understand yet and constantly be trying to discover them. And that is one of the things I believe as a humanist. I think a lot of the things you're describing are things that are like really just observing the incredibly plastic nature of our brains, right? The fact that like the human brain is this incredible, nearly boundless tool that can change. And also, though, that we share so much of our DNA and brain structure with other humans, that so many of the experiences we have, including the most beautiful parts of life that come out of our brain, are common to other people, right? Like, all of these things I think are a part of my humanism, are a part of the thing that makes me proud to be a human, excited about humanity, grateful for my body and my brain and the world I live in. But like, I think that, to me, I almost think that like it's cooler to say this comes from my brain and my body, right? Like, I got a whole universe living within me. Like Carl Sagan said, we all have the cosmos within us. Like, to me, I'm not knocking your way of telling the story, but to me, that is so much more of an exciting story than there's this other thing that I'll never be able to fully understand, or that is somehow magical and outside of me.
Yes, sir. I get your point, and I just, last thing I'm gonna say is, when you say like our brain, that is a material thing, but I believe that the levels that we need is not tied to the brain. Intelligence and everything else is tied to the brain, but higher states of consciousness is tied to abstract consciousness. The feeling of isness is what we should be describing. Not necessarily Buddhism, because I'm not a Buddhist either, but they are right about it, a lot of stuff. They are.
Gotcha. And I guess what I would say, and maybe this is where we diverge, right? Like, I think I agree with you that there are like, there's transcendental meditation is a thing, right? Like, you can get to, or like, I don't know, certain points where you feel like you're having an out-of-body experience. I still think that is a function of your brain. It's just like accessing a different part of it. But that may be where we diverge, and I think it's good to have these conversations from a place of mutual respect, right? Like, that's what we got to do. We got to do a whole hell of a lot more of that.
Word. And thanks for talking to me, man. I'm gonna think about what y'all said about really dialing in on materialism. So I'm gonna call it again, be ready to just go hard on materialism. Just all right. Yeah, I'm gonna dial it in, focus in. So thanks for talking to me, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Cool. Later, Kelly. Bye.
All right. Thanks, man. Be well.
Alrighty. Give me a second here. I'm gonna close out Call in Studio, and then we're gonna take your super chats of $5 or more. Interesting conversation. I had a really hard time following it for the first chunk, but at the end I was like, okay, at least I'm following the thread now. I'm with you on the journey. For a while I felt like I was running after the train on the tracks and like desperate to keep up and could not follow what was going on. Let me
it's
down. All right.
It was something. I didn't. Maybe I got there. I have no idea. Maybe the whole conversation was on a higher plane of consciousness that I never got to.
Maybe. I'm glad we got to take it back to out-of-body experiences, because as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, I want to bring up. I don't talk about it here, weirdly, mostly because I think I engage in mostly like political conversations. I don't do as much of the God stuff on this channel. But yeah, that was a big part of my deconversion. I've told the story. I don't really remember actively believing in God super hard, but I know I was definitely done by the time I was like 11 or 12. And I had a weird journey of lots of woo beliefs for quite a while, and that was one of them. I was super into spirit science.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm really trying to figure out how, like, it's clearly so compelling to some people. In a way, it's not to me, right? Like, for some reason, some people are really attracted to that story of like, no, there's this abstract, like, fractal plane of existence that, like, we can't actually access with the conscious part of our brain. And I'm like, okay, but why? Like, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's like, I do think there's like a kind of a contrarian trait in atheists. Like, I don't want you to tell me there's something I can't understand or don't get. Like,
Mhm.
like, screw you. Like, I'm gonna go figure it out then. And I don't know why it has to be a permanent, ineffable mystery is more attractive than, yeah, it's this wonderful thing that we don't fully understand, but like, that's the beauty of being human, is we can go figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. It yeah, I mean, clearly, a lot of people have that similar impulse, but I do appreciate the conversation, and I feel like every time I learn how to do it just a little bit better. But all right, we're gonna read your super chats. If you want to go back and forth, I'll start the first one, and then we can take turns reading these. 10 pounds from Barbara Barrett. Coffee before we start. I almost had caffeine, but I've been really sick today, and I did not need to be dehydrated by more caffeine. So
I pumped myself up with the Celsius the watermelon lemonade flavor.
nice. You want to read, or can you see
All
this
right,
one?
Joshua Everett.
Okay.
Yep, I got it. Joshua Everett, $5. Happy Friday. Nothing much to say. Just glad we're all here. Joshua, I'm glad we're here too, and thank you for the picture of your cat.
It is cute. We have another 5 pounds from Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. Charlie Kirk was a monster because of his words. He deserved to be mocked. Deal with it. Oh, okay. I mean, listen, I'm not here to tell people how to feel. If you felt inclined to mock him, if you don't miss him, that is not really what my prerogative is. I just wanted to say that, like, the thing I shared on Instagram, that it is still true for me, whereas it's like, I spent hours of my life debunking his shit, right? Like, probably functionally days of my life wasted on trying to combat lies that could be sourced directly from him. And yet, I don't feel safer in a world where this is how he's removed as competition in the marketplace of ideas. Like, again, I would much rather have had to live to feel guilty and the full weight of consequences for realizing what he did to the world, and to have his daughter and wife resent him for it or something along those lines. I think that would be far closer to what I view as justice for him than what happened. What happened was violent, traumatizing to him, his kids, well, obviously not him, but to his wife and kids and everyone there. It doesn't really feel like it serves the purpose we want it to, despite the relief that we may feel from knowing one of the biggest purveyors of anti-trans sentiment is no longer going to be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about Charlie Kirk, right, and like how you resolve the conflicting feelings of, like, as a humanist, I think every human being has the right to life by nature of their humanity. I think Charlie Kirk was a guy who did a lot of horrific stuff. Like, I think about my position and like the AHA's position on the death penalty, right? Like, I don't like. I don't think what Charlie Kirk did in his life was redeeming. I also don't think that murderers are great people. But like, I don't think that we should kill people in this world. I don't think that I think the taking of human life, it degrades the humanity of the person who takes it, degrades the humanity of the victim, and it degrades the humanity of the community when we say, actually, people's right to live is conditional. I don't agree with that, and I think you can believe that and also believe that the things Charlie Kirk did in his life were bad.
100%.
$5 from the atheist mechanic. Andrew really trusts this government. Oh, my sweet summer child. Yeah, that's you really, I don't know who, I don't know who trusts this government except the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein, who's happy that they're keeping all his secrets.
Yeah, no kidding. I will say though, I know the chat doesn't like Andrew. I saw a lot of the messages in chat, and you guys are allowed to feel what you feel. However, I am hopeful for Andrew. He has given concessions that are really hard to get from a lot of like deep MAGA cultists. Like usually you don't get anything, and he's given us some stuff that's kind of a big deal in my opinion. And so I know he can be a little difficult sometimes, and he's definitely said some hurtful things. I'm hopeful. I feel like there's a grain of something in there that has the potential to have him see our side of things.
What I heard in there was someone who was so deeply marinating in propaganda that he just doesn't have a world outside of the MAGA bubble. And that to me is like that to me is just a sad thing. But also a thing whereas remember with atheists, he was like, well, all the atheists I've met have been this way and this way. And it's like, dude, well, like clearly there is a whole world that you have not bothered to engage with or explore. And so like, if you're showing curiosity about that, let's bring it to you, man.
Yeah, I've said before, the best parts about these conventions aren't the talks. The talks are good. The best part is hanging out with people who share your values and think like you do. And like, I don't think we actually at NanoCon. This is okay. I'm sorry. I'm detouring a lot for this one super chat, but
it's okay. This is my cat, by the way. He came to hang out.
Oh, he's so cute.
This is cats. Kermit. Kermit, say hello.
Oh my god. At NanoCon, they're at the hotel that they booked for the whole event. There's a restaurant built in, right? And one of the woman who was like the head staff member in charge of all of the whole restaurant, they served us food throughout the whole weekend. She was listening in on one of the talks, and she came up to it was Dr. Ben, Glenda Jordan, and I were sitting outside, enjoying stuff. Don't need to give details to chat.
So vague.
We were hanging out, and she came out and she was like just kind of chatting with us, and she was like, I just want to say that we've had a lot of groups book events at this hotel, and most of them are, probably closer to how I believe in some sort of God or something. And when they had their whole system shut down the day before, right? They couldn't book anyone. They couldn't give us food at this one thing. So a lot of us had to go get food nearby. And she was like, and not a single one of you was upset with me. Not a single one even made me feel slightly bad about it. And she was like, I can't tell you how many times I've had a Christian group who berated us and screamed at us, and I, as the owner, just had to, customer's always right, nod and say, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, and not a single one of you did it. And then I went and listened in one of the talks, and I was like, wow, I think I might agree more with these people on a lot of issues. And she was like, I still believe in God, I still believe in something, but I just want to say you guys really like changed how I think of like atheists as a group of people. And we all
this
were
is why we got to talk to people, right? Like this is why we got to reach a little past the artificial boundary, and this is why like secular communities are good, because they promote that kind of behavior where we all act decent. Like I love that story. I'm so bummed I missed NanoCon. I'm going to be there next year.
It was really good, and that's just kind of why I'm like, I have hope for Andrew. You guys also got to remember, he said he's 19 years old. He's still very young.
19?
He's 19.
Oh my god.
He's not even done cooking yet.
Oh my god. Listen, all the stupid stuff I believed in did when I was 19. I was not baked.
Right. $5 more from the atheist mechanic. The monad encompasses all. Andrew may be an exception though. We eventually got to a monad call. It was funny. Or monad adjacent.
$10 from the atheist mechanic, very generous. Andrew, I have a hard time having pity on you. You are a sad and misinformed individual. I hope you can learn better, but the more you call in, that hope dies a little more. See, I feel like as we went through the call, I don't know what point in the call this was, but I feel like we started getting to like a place where he was able to engage a little more respectfully or a little, a little more humanely. I don't know.
100%. I'm telling you guys, there's a foot in the door there, and maybe Andrew stays believing in God. You know, like that. My goal with him is more. I care more about his views on like trans people and like consent, and like he wasn't like anti-consent, but you know, weird judgmental about feelings about people's sexuality and how many partners they had, even if it was all consensual. That's the stuff that I'm more like. I think we can get him there.
I'm like, God, how pent up would I have been at 19 if I believed it was deeply immoral to have any kind of like sexual function that was not for reproduction? You know what I'm talking about? Like
I know.
I would have been radiating with some kind of tension.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure.
I got deep pity there.
$5 from the Raven 200. I think this one's mine. Andrew, I say this completely unironically and with no hyperbole. You are a worse caller than Emmanuel. I don't think so. You guys, I know you like to have your regular caller who you smack around, and Andrew's taking it in pretty good spirit. Like he sees you guys, but he still calls in and doesn't care. So I'm not defending the bad things he said at all. Like I'm just saying, again, you get concessions from Andrew that you never get from deep MAGA people. So like, let's leave the door open, okay?
$5 from Aaron. Drinking game. Take a shot or a bong rip every time Andrew uses a fallacy. Was anyone keeping count? That's my question. Maybe if it's a reasonable amount of shots, then maybe. No, I think I'd die from that.
I keep notes during the call, but the second the call is over, I delete them all because if they just start to clog up my notes app, and then I get confused, and so I didn't keep any of my notes from that call. $4.99 from AshRay84. This community gives me hope. Andrew makes me sad. God, you guys are really giving him grief tonight.
£5 from Barbara Barrett. This is sympathy and thanks for dealing with Andrew. Yeah, Andrew is also my little brother's name, so I will take that as a double entendre.
Nice. $5 from Bookworm. I'm intersex and I was in the army. I was deployed in OIF 6, but I supposedly don't exist. I'm not sure I follow.
Maybe it was related to something Andrew said on another call. I don't know. I feel like we didn't get into whether trans or intersex people exist.
Yeah, I think
I would have remembered that.
Yeah, he's definitely called in that on that topic before, but we didn't go there tonight. I also liked that when he misgendered me, I corrected him and he just took it on the chin. He was like, "Oh, she's sorry," and moved on. And I was like, "Hey, see." Yeah. I don't know if he completely knew what he was agreeing to when he did that, but he did it anyway. And so I'm like,
I clocked that. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. I think we can move him, you guys. Look, the religious right sees somebody like Andrew from the other perspective, and they're like, I can fix him. And I like,
yeah,
we can fix him. Okay, $4.99 from Anul. Nice is not the same thing as good. Yeah. Okay. True. Correct.
Yeah, that has been a lot of the defense of Charlie Kirk has been that, oh, well, he engaged civilly in conversation. And to me, I know I've been given grief because sometimes I can be a little mean in tone as well. But I just fully reject the notion that tone or niceties equals goodness. You know, if you're in a pleasant tone saying that, the civil rights amendments were a mistake, your tone doesn't really matter. What you said was despicable and disgusting and contemptible.
Right? Like, so much of what's fucked up about our country right now is that there are so many people who are representing us, who are holding the levers of power in Washington, who absolutely play by all the politeness rules, but at the end of the day are doing nothing to help the fact that too many people are living paycheck to paycheck, or that too many people are dying from gun violence, or too many people are dying abroad with bombs that we make in this country and fund with our tax dollars. And it's like, at this point, like, I don't care if, like, I don't know, Jamal Bowman pulled a fire alarm, or, like, you know, Eric Swalwell called Ted Cruz a shithead. Like, at a certain point, what matters to me, the measure of your moral worth, is what are you doing for people, not like, are you using naughty words? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
$10 from the atheist mechanic. The monad exists and trumps your god, Kelly. All right, what's the monad, Arden?
Uh,
I'm really out of the loop here. I gotta get clued in.
I understand. So it's kind of an inside joke in our community, but there is a God concept called the monad that kind of is similar to what Kelly is presenting. It's the notion of this like supreme fundamental intelligence to the world, and they often use the 0 and 1 thing because it's this notion of like it's the indivisible unit, and like, you know, like 0, you can't divide anything by 0, and that, listen, the 0 and 1 thing, it still goes over my head. I still don't really think it completely makes sense.
So
But
they're
I'm
saying God is math?
kind of, in a way, they're kind of saying like, I think it's kind of supposed to be like a
I know
logical
so many
argument,
math teachers
like
who have been waiting to be elevated to the like, because we don't respect math teachers in this country. Like, they've been waiting to be elevated to the status of prophet. And
right,
so
right.
I hope to introduce them to people like Kelly.
I think there's kind of a sense in which it makes sense because math is really fundamentally just logic. Like it is just like a logical thing that you're engaging with. You know, the plus and minus, those are just like functions of logic. But like there's a sense in which I can understand that if, you know, math is sort of this like logical argument that you could maybe sort of derive some like, and there are these fundamental things to math and that indicates something fundamental about reality, I think is the implication. I don't think that it's evidenced or that it actually follows from the premises, the conclusion, but I try to represent it. I genuinely, it doesn't make sense to me, so I'm trying to like piece together like
look,
how I did with Kelly's call. I'm like, I think that
if you want to
like
take a synthesis, if you want to take a synthesis of all the things we can't physically see and touch and call it God, like, I guess. I mean, genuinely, like, I'm not mad about that as long as you think everyone, like, deserves the same rights. But I feel like it makes it harder to communicate when we talk about these things using metaphor rather than trying to discover them, naming them, and then talking about them as they are.
Right. Yeah, no, I completely agree, which is why I don't always really value a lot of the, like, sort of logical contingency arguments for the same reason, where it's like, it's kind of like dependent on a if you're right thing, like, but like, you know, how you can do that endlessly, like for so many like propositions, like if you accept this one thing, then all of these things follow from it. Like, sure, but like also like fairies and unicorns could follow from like a similar premise, you know, or a similar like axiom. We've got 10 pounds from the fuzzy logic. Don't believe that atheist mechanic guy. The quantum monad is everything and nothing in quantum existence and non-existence. It trumps and non-trumps the classical monad, 0 and 1, alpha and omega. See, now we're getting somewhere.
Everything is God and nothing is God. $10 from Moira Bannister. Dear 6 pound 7 ounce Lord baby Jesus, please let Andrew never call again. Wow, that is a very specific. That's a very specific. Like, I'm trying to. We're getting stuff for a baby shower, and I'm trying to figure out what size onesie that is.
6 pounds 7 ounces. Yeah, I don't know. I think Matt asked that he not
Did
call
baby
him
Jesus
back?
wear onesies? Did they have them?
I don't know. Swaddled, I believe, was the situation there. I think Matt kicked him off of calling Matt, but that's fair because Matt really just only wants to talk about truth, and Andrew isn't always interested in talking about that. He's kind of interested in just sharing his ideas sometimes, and so it's all right. Not every caller has to match with every
back
host.
And forth with him about MAGA conspiracy theories. I'm like, let's go. Let's talk about. I hope he looks up that University of Maryland study. I hope he does.
He was opposed to basically how they're addressing immigration. He doesn't like immigration writ large, you know, and he doesn't like the way immigration's happening. But he's opposed to ICE detaining like working immigrants who aren't causing crimes. When I was like, hey, that is more than you're gonna get from like 80% of hard MAGA. So like I'll take it. That's progress to me. Or maybe I'm just so starved for a caller to give us any kind of crumb of a lead that I'm deluding myself. I don't know. Is this from me? I think so. $20 from Tizen. Buddhism has gods called devas. Mahayana Zen does not typically see them as beings demanding obedience like a Christian god. They're more so allegorical figures with traits to aspire to. Example, Daikokuten is a Japanese deva.
I appreciate the opportunity to learn something about Buddhism. That's really cool.
Yeah, they actually just started talking a lot, this person, about Mahayana Zen. I'm not super familiar. Despite having an Enso circle tattooed on my arm, that was 18-year-old thinking the symbol was cool and that it was like made me deep and philosophical when it really didn't. So
$10 from the atheist mechanic. The monad in all forms encompasses all. Love that we got a roundabout call about the monad. I love that you love that, atheist mechanic.
It was pretty good. Once he started saying ones and zeros, I was like, oh shit, this is the monad. And he giggled, so he's clearly been watching. $5 from Joshua Everett. The Monad 2, The Monadening by Kelly from Indiana. Yes. To help you understand why this is such an inside joke for our audience, Forrest Valkai and Erica Gutzik-Gibbon, when they get together on a Skeptalk, they're both so verbose that the show inevitably goes on 8 hours long. And so we've started only allowing them to do it.
I was a talker. Damn.
Yeah. We started only allowing them to do it like a couple times a year because it's so ridiculous. But the audience really loves it and it's really fun. It's a special thing now. And the most recent time, a couple months ago, after it was around midnight at this point, we'd started at 6. So it was 6 hours into the stream. We were on like the last call and chat was begging for one more call and Forrest was begging for one more call. So we agreed with the audience if they sent us $500 in total donations over like 5 minutes, I would open the lines for one call because I was tired. I was like, I don't want to fucking do this, but if you guys give me $500, I'll do it. And they came through.
No,
so I
opened the line. You're worth.
Right. So I opened the lines. And the person who called in, that was the God argument they wanted to present, the monad. And at one point they screamed at the host, anyway, back to the monad. And our audience has just not been able to live it down. And now they just talk about the monad all the time.
Oh my God, that's how I'm gonna redirect arguments with my fiance. Like, anyway, back to the monad.
Right.
That's perfect. $5 from Joshua Everett. We're back in the monad groove. We're back in the monad groove. I love it. How many more monad puns can we make?
Oh my God. Our audience, also Erica hates puns. So that's another thing our audience loves to do is lean into the puns to like low-key torture her a little bit.
I'm honestly surprised I got fewer fish. Like, Fish Stark is probably one of the top most punnable names in existence. So
for sure.
Next time people should come more prepared is all I'm saying.
Noted. Chat, they won't let you down on that. $4.99 from Juju Penguins. Fish was super cool to see your conversation with Drew that started at AA in Minnesota, turned into a new humanist influencer fund. Love seeing you on the line. Yeah, Juju was at American Atheists. It was she was there. We had a lot of conversations. She was really cool.
That's right. I remember her being there. She was sitting at the bar with us when we were like talking about how we were all going to change the world together. That was the first night I met Drew. That was the night I met you. And it's like, It's crazy that in less than 6 months, like now we have like the first 6-figure fund in existence to fund secular content creators. Like it's nice to see these things taking shape.
I also saw you're doing an event with Taylor, right? Some sort of online event coming up.
We actually did it earlier this week. It was an event specifically on Black humanism. It was with Dr. Tony Pinn, who is a tenured professor of religion at Rice University, and he's like an expert scholar on Black humanism. He's the director of research for the AHA's Institute for Humanist Studies. And it was great. Like, it was raising money it was a pay what you can event. It raised money for Black non-believers, but like there's a very specific and rich and deep tradition of Black humanism in this country. And it was awesome of Taylor to like want to bring him in and platform him. So we're doing, and we look out soon for a collab between us and Taylor on the Creator Fund as well.
Awesome. Yeah. I remember talking to you and Jake about, at SSACon about like doing more online events. Cause I feel like that's such a untapped market in the secular. Well, that's why we started to do LineCon Online Live to be like, there's not a lot of secular events that are like accessible to people and affordable and not like a $300 entry fee for like a weekend or something, you know? So I'd love to see that stuff. That's really exciting.
Big time. And actually next year, we're going to do our whole AHA conference online, right? Like
Nice.
this year, we did our AHA conference like in Chicago, and like we gave out these awards. It was like you had to be able to fly to Chicago and pay like enough money for us to make some of the money we spent back on all the hotel food.
Yeah.
And this next year will be like $25 to get in, and you'll get to see like the celebrities who accept the Humanist of the Year award and some good talks and that kind of stuff. So more on that in several months.
I understand that. Lots of things going on in the works. And this one's you. Yep.
$4.99 from Juju Penguins. Oh my god, this is tithe for how amazing the name Kermit is for a cat. Thank you. Kermit is also an amazing cat for a cat. He is a rescue kitty. Literally, like, I rescued him out of the parking lot in my apartment complex in 2017 when I was living in Charleston, West Virginia. He had been like a house pet. And he was like a house pet, and he belonged to like a family with little kids that loved him, and they got foreclosed on, and they had to move to a place where they couldn't have cats, and the shelter was full because there are all these stray cats running around Charleston, West Virginia, so they had to put him out, and like, and he was like trying to live on the street, but like you saw, like I cradled him in my arms. Aww. This is like the sweetest, softest kitty boy in the entire world. And so he was just getting beat to shit by the other stray cats. And I was like, I did not have time or space in my life for a second cat. I was like, you are coming with me.
Unironically, almost crying from that story. What a poor, I'm so glad he found you and he got his home. Poor baby.
He got his home. He's the perfect guy.
$20 from Mr. Boricua, pronounced Boricua. Roll the R. Yeah, yes, you always do a pronunciation when a new host is here. I thought I'd heard Andrew having an honest moment of clarity. I hope he gets on the track to question his bad positions. Pray to the monad for his journey out of bad thoughts. Yeah, listen, he's, you know, it's all right. I think like this is kind of the conversation we were having at the beginning, that we need to be more comfortable with a little bit more of a plurality of ideas as long as we share values. And I really do feel when we appealed to like his sense of morality, that's where he caved a lot of the time, which is kind of what I'm saying. Like, I think I have high hopes for Andrew. Again, he's 19. He's not done cooking yet. His brain's still developing, you guys. Like, let's not judge too harshly on, you know, a like legal adult, but listen, I'm only 29, I'm almost 30, but like he feels like a baby to me, like a 19-year-old. So I'm like,
yep. Our monad who art the Matrix, please deliver Andrew from Ben Shapiro.
Yes,
I agree with you. Like he clearly is searching for a framework that he can trust to apply his innate sense of morality to. Right? And I don't think he's fully found that in MAGA. I think that's part of why he's here showing up, is because he is questioning that. Right? Like,
yeah.
And I think that this is why I feel so strongly that the secular movement has to offer something more than negation of what people have, because no one is fulfilled by negation. Right? Like, it can serve a purpose to argue against bad things, but like ultimately everyone has like biologically in us this like sense of like wanting to protect communities we care about from harm, wanting to protect our own self-interest, and like needs a container to put it in that helps them figure out how to apply that to the world. And people have flocked to religion because it gives them easy, clear answers for that to fit within a coherent moral system. Right? Like, that's the benefit of humanism, is like it can do that without like the idea of a coercive creator god. So right. I'm like, like we like Andrew, if you're listening, because I feel like you listen and you come through, like let's have more conversations. Like, we want you to become a humanist. For sure.
Very, very much so. It was interesting. I actually had a conversation about this with my therapist the other day about how I was like, you know, feeling like I think we do a really good job at the line of breaking down arguments. Like, we're really good myth busters. Like, we're shattering a lot of people's frameworks of how they look at the world and all that very effectively, but we don't always deliver. Like, after your framework gets busted, then what? We don't do that.
Right.
And we touched on that at the beginning, but like that's not really our realm. And so like that's why I'm excited to have you here and talk more about humanism and get people excited about that, because even though we don't provide that, it does exist, like that is a thing that's there. And so I'm happy to keep doing what we do and to keep busting bad ideas and bad frameworks. But I definitely have been thinking a lot about the obligation that we have or don't have, whatever, to not just myth bust, but also maybe kind of lean them in a certain direction after and be like, hey, also check out these things, go down this pathway for a little bit and just see. If you don't like it, like whatever, that's fine. But like myth busting isn't enough, I think, is kind of my point.
Mm-hmm. We got to do it together. We got to break out the silos. Okay, $10 from the Atheist Mechanic. Seeing how fish reacted to the monad has given me life. Thank you for that. So, yeah, that's I am now endowed with knowledge I didn't have before, and I am grateful for that. I think.
I can't wait.
I'm gonna noodle on this one.
Yeah, you gotta do some research on the
monad.
Right. Yeah, take a gummy and like try to Google the monad god and see if you can understand. When you look up the monad, it's just a math concept first. You have to do monad like god first.
Are you there, monad? It's me, Margaret.
Yeah, $5 in legally mod. At this point, I think criticizing Andrew counts as ableism. I'm not even sure Kelly was speaking English. This feels like borderline using a slur mod. If there, I won't judge. Anyway, I'm just gonna move on to the next one. Thank you for your donation.
$4.99 from Respecter. Hey Reese, it's good to see you. That is my future brother-in-law. And it's good to see him, because we don't agree politically on a whole lot of stuff, but like,
yeah,
it's an incredibly good guy. I'm so excited for us to be a part of each other's families, and I love that he's supporting the line. So good to see you, buddy.
I love that. I love weddings. I mostly like to dance, and I like to cry over happy things. £5 from Barbara Barrett. Stupidity is incurable, but red hats make it easier to identify. I will admit.
Oh boy.
When you're going hard enough to buy the hat, that does say a little extra something about you.
I used to have a red Washington Nationals hat, and now it's like, oh, well, can't wear that. Don't want to put, don't want people making that kind of assumption about me.
Yeah. Matt has a hat that looks like a MAGA hat, but it says "Made you look Black Lives Matter" on it.
My grandpa used to wear a shirt that said Tea Party, and then it said, like, under it, like, tea parties are for little girls with imaginary friends. This was back in like 2014 when the Tea Party was a big deal, and he would wear it on cruise ships. So people would be like, yeah, and he'd be like, read the shirt. This is my favorite shirt. My favorite like sneaky shirt is. And somebody gave this to me when I was giving a talk in Durham, North Carolina, at like the Triangle Free Thought community, which is the like secular humanist community down there. It's a picture of the American flag on the shirt, and the American flag is made up of the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. And so you look at it, and it looks like a very like patriotic, maybe even a little right-wing coded shirt. But it's all the words of the Pledge of Allegiance, except for under God. So just the way it was before the 1950s. And I love wearing that, because that is like, that's my Pledge of Allegiance.
I've been very much on board with the I want to reclaim the American flag and like a lot of these like the freedom rhetoric. However, I will say it's really hard to do, because I think we all have that association where if I see somebody wearing the flying the American flag from their truck, I assume they're right wing, and that's kind of a shame to me, because I'm like, I really want to aspire to the ideals of what America could be and like to be proud of the flag, but it's just really hard to sell it. And I think sometimes leftist communities, because it's become so much associated with the right wing.
I just go ahead and do it. Like, big ass American flag out in front of my house. Like, I got American flag pants. I got American flag socks. Like, my feeling is, like, this country was not built by religious bigots. It was built by people who, for their time, believed more in liberty and enlightenment than anyone else in the world, right? It didn't mean they believed in it relative to our standards today, but relative to the standards of the time, America was basically the biggest possible bet on the idea of like against elitism, right? Like against concentrating power in the hands of the few, for liberty and prosperity for more people. And like, again, I'm not saying that they did it the way it should be done, but America has always been a project of like healers and helpers and humanists, not like billionaires and bigots. And like, humanists built this country, not the reactionary right. And we should not let them take that story from us.
100%. I miss the days when we could sing, Schoolhouse Rock, The Great American Melting Pot, and feeling like that represented America. And now people like hate that. And I'm like, oh, come on. That was what made us so good. Multiculturalism was what made it so beautiful.
Right. And it like used to be like even you could get some bipartisan consensus around that. But there you go. Okay. $10 from the atheist mechanic. I'll concede on Andrew. I'll hold on to the hope he can be better. I can also admit to being a shithead at 19. See, there we go. There we go. Like,
totally.
I am, I don't think anyone is a lost cause. I really don't. I think people are capable of incredible plasticity and incredible change. And that doesn't mean we like validate their shitty opinions now to like be nice to them in the hopes that we can just nice them into being different. But like, I don't think we can give up on people. At least not if we want to be organizers who win the world by changing people's minds.
100%. Another $5 from Tizen. The Enso is a beautiful symbol in Zen Arden. Read into the Japanese aesthetic called wabi sabi. Yeah, I'm familiar with wabi sabi. I think you would love it. Because I'm a weeb, I took Japanese in high school, so I'm like, or not high school, in college, so I'm moderately familiar with some cultural Japanese concepts like that, but not enough to represent them.
$5 from Space Barbarian. Fly a Fort Sumter flag. I am not familiar with the Fort Sumter flag, but if that is so I don't know if that's a good symbol or a trap, but I appreciate this. Now I have a thing to go look up other than the monad.
Yeah, I don't have time to read this. There's a whole Wikipedia about it. All right, that was the last super chat. One more just came in from Juju Penguins, actually. Let's get that one in there.
Juju Penguins.
$4.99 from Juju Penguins. Can the next fish pairing be with Austin? I feel like they will have chemistry to have difficult but hopeful conversations. Yeah, I'm down to have Fish back a ton more if he's had a good time.
Can I come back, please?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. This was great. I would love to come back.
I would be curious to see how your style matches up with other people, because I feel like it depends on the conversation and it depends on the call. I aspire to be more kind of like you, I think, in these conversations, but I definitely have more of a debate bro, blood sports kind of instinct in this arena. And some of our other hosts are like that times 10. I'm definitely like, even despite that, I'm like maybe number 6 on the list of hosts that have that energy,
Interesting. I will say my debates bro blood sport stuff comes out when we get into the like MAGA stuff and the politics stuff a little more, right? Because ultimately, I don't know, like I've got like, I don't feel particularly strongly about theism either way. Like, to me, I just like, it's just a thing that is not particularly relevant to my life. And for humanism is exciting to me as an affirmative framework. But like the kind of stuff Andrew was going off of at the beginning, like the double standards and like, oh, like the left is inherently violent. It's like, okay, buddy, prove it. Like, so
right.
Another time, the gloves could come more off.
I'm excited. I would love to see it. Any last thoughts? You want to plug any last things about AHA or you or anything at all? Now's the time.
Totally. So I will just say, for people who are terrified of Christian nationalism right now, who are terrified about the idea of kids getting Bibles pushed into their hands in Oklahoma, getting forced to read the 10 Commandments in Texas, the idea of our tax dollars being used to tell kids in schools across America that we are going to hell, like, or the people who are worried about like our government doing unconscionable things like cutting aid to poor seniors, or like putting immigrants in like detention camps where they're packed in like sardines and treated inhumanely, or like bombing people in non-combatants in the Caribbean and calling it justice, any of it. The AHA is fighting for the rights of our community in the courts, in Congress, and we are building communities where people like us who want something more than an online space can belong. So if you go to AmericanHumanist.org, and if you give any amount of money, you can join our Discord, but you'll also be supporting the work of, we got 17 full-time staff. They work like hell. We pay them all living wages, and their job is to get up every day and figure out how can we help humanists feel a sense of belonging, and how can we make sure we stop the Christian nationalist right. And so if you want to be a part, if you like anything you heard and want to be a part of that, come to AmericanHumanist.org, check us out, send me an email. I read and respond to all my email, and we'll try and build a more humanist world together.
I love it. All those links and all that stuff is in the description, so definitely check that out. Also consider joining our Patreon, patreon.com/calltheline. Like I said earlier, you get access to ad-free episodes of The Line Has a Podcast, our monthly Q&A sessions, our monthly lecture series. And if you, at a certain threshold, you also get your names in the credits. You can join these lovely people, and you help us keep the lights on. You help us keep our immense levels of programming that we do. So thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see y'all next time, okay? Have a good night.